Nation.
Region Review.
The Raging Cajuns will be a source of pride for this university, for the alumni, fans, and donors as we achieve success in the classroom, in the competitive arena, and in the community.
It's about to get really fun.
We're looking for dudes that will stand up. Well, Coach, let me tell you today, I'm here and I'm ready to stand up. And I challenge you, Raging Cajun Nation, to stand up with us. Stand up with us. Let's lock hand in hand and let's walk through the gates of Omaha.
Hey, I love y'all boys. Let's grind every day starting today. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Lord, ready. Who's that team ready? Who's that team ready? That's up.
I got one thing to say right here. Cajuns win!
Ladies and gentlemen, pimps and players, half-ass rappers and true rhyme sayers. It's Raging Review. Back at it again. Me and Nick for Track the Pack. And maybe Jerry at some point will jump on. He's got some daddy duty stuff to do on this beautiful Sunday evening. Nicholas, how are things, sir?
Things are good, man. I will take 4-1 every single week going forward through the rest of the season. Now, we'll talk a little bit about my disappointment and yours about Friday night. But hey, 4-1, I'll take it. It's been a good week. Softball wins the series, didn't get the sweep, won the series. And of course, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the NCAA basketball tournament right now. The meltdowns going on across the country.
I'm just happy that the G5 are mid-majors. I know in basketball it's mid-majors. I'm just happy that we're going to have some folks in the Final Four. How cool is that? You know, Jerry made the tweet yesterday or day before yesterday about how FAU used to come into the Cajun Dome and we would beat them like a drum on the regular. And now they're going to go play for the final. They're going to be in the Final Four and play for a national championship. That's kind of mind-blowing.
But my question is, who gets to decide who's a mid-major? This seems major to me.
What's
You're
the requirement there?
Right.
Is it by budget or how does it work?
So when there's these meltdowns in the media, like, oh, we need to change now. Okay, now we need to change the whole format of the tournament because God forbid the crowned princes and princesses of college basketball aren't in the Final Four and may not compete for a championship. Now we got to change the rules because of the name on somebody's chest. But going back to what I was saying, what makes you major? What makes you a major college? Because I know that
Gonzaga's certainly not a P5 or blue blood or whatever. They were nobodies until about 23 years ago when Mark Few walked through the door, and now they are what I would consider a basketball blue blood. I mean, they've accomplished so many things, everything except, I think, winning a national championship is the only thing left to the resume.
I don't know about you, but I was not impressed by Tennessee and Duke. Now, granted, Tennessee beat us by 3, but those are the blue bloods of college basketball. I don't know, man. Maybe the tide is shifting a little bit. Maybe people get a little nervous.
But you see what happened. As soon as Boise State busted the BCS, we need a college playoff.
Yep.
As soon as people started making noise and I guess the smaller schools started figuring out how to get into those big games, the Fiesta Bowls, the Cotton Bowls and things like that. Because remember, Western Michigan went, I think, right before the playoffs started. They didn't want to see that. I guess they lose revenue.
Imagine if college basketball did like football and said, well, you know what? 85% of the teams can only come from these 5 conferences. That wouldn't seem fair in college basketball, would it? But it's fair in football. Oh, we're good in football. It's all about the money. It's all about the branding. It's all about what ESPN can make off of eyes on TV. That's all that matters.
All that matters. That's why I still think that college baseball, for all of the problems that they do have with figuring out, where who goes what and how the regionals are set up, I think pound for pound is the best postseason for determining a champion and for allowing G5s to be able to actually compete on the stage that they deserve to compete. Look at Campbell. Campbell's a nobody 5 years ago. Never made a regional 4 years ago, until 4 years ago. I think it's 4. Now, I'm telling you right now, that team, if they're not in Omaha, it's a super regional team. They might host a regional.
Well,
they're unbelievable.
Here's the problem with Campbell is that they may fall into the same trap that we did because I don't know that Campbell's going to lose a conference game this season. I watched them today. I watched them yesterday against Radford. Stupid, right?
God.
So I don't know until you get to the regionals and super regionals, and it goes back to basketball. The best team isn't always the team that wins. The best team isn't always the team that makes it to Omaha. You got to have a lot going in your way, and I proved it in 14. We were undoubtedly the best team in the country. There was no doubt. And we didn't even make it to Omaha. So a lot of things have to go your way. A lot of things have to bounce your way. And so I'm not ready to crown them. Look, talent-wise, from what I've seen so far this season, again, they may not lose a conference game this season. They may host a regional if they can. I'm assuming their stadium is big enough, but I tell you what, and the fact that what is encouraging is the fact that all 3 games at the end we were in it. Like we should have won. I feel like we should have won 2 out of 3. Yeah, we should have won 2 out of 3 in my opinion. But they're damn good. It's just hopeful that all the bounces go their way because they deserve it.
The thing about the NCAA tournament in March Madness, it's not necessarily designed to crown the best team. It's designed for chaos, entertainment, and who's hot, which, by the way, is a very compelling product on television, and I'm sure it's great in person. I think baseball is more geared toward finding the eventual best team. Now, you've had a couple of different anomalies, like Fresno State, it's got to be 15 years ago now, but they were under 500 going into their conference tournament and got on a heater and just blew by the regional, the super, and then went into to Omaha and won the national championship. I mean, that's an anomaly, obviously, but outside of that, most of the time they're finding the best team in college baseball.
But I think again, the tournament is set up differently. You're not one and done in college baseball.
Exactly.
14, we lost to Jackson State first freaking game of the regional, and we came back and won the rest. So it's like you said, it's set up to find the best team, but still, even in that format, you don't always have the best team. And somebody was arguing, well, the NFL playoffs, they reseed, and that's a better format. But guess what? When the Saints won the Super Bowl that year, the Colts were better than them. I hate to tell you, they had more talent. They should have kicked our butts. But things lined up well in that one game for us to win. That's the beauty of sports. Anybody can win given the opportunity. You don't necessarily get the opportunity in college football, but all the other sports, everybody has an opportunity. Some maybe, slanted more their way to get them in tournaments and give them a little bit of a push. But in the end, you got to win the games. And it's fun to see. Fun to see the little guys win this year.
Agree 100%. San Diego State, Creighton, and I'm going blank on the other side of the bracket, but just those two. I mean, those are teams that we've played recently and competitive. Obviously, Creighton knocked us out in 2014, but that's a small private school in Kansas. Am I right about that?
I believe so, yeah. Midwest
somewhere. Regardless, it's good to see the smaller guy scratch and claw and get an opportunity. But it's been a great tournament. In fact, I think it's my favorite tournament. First ever tournament without a number 1 seed getting out of the Elite 8. And there's justice in the world because Alabama didn't win. And that to me is like the crowning achievement to every team in the tournament this year. You cannot let Miller and that team and that coach, that smug prick, oh my God, no way was that guy going to be able to be on a national stage and uplifted by the country. That just could not happen, Nick.
And look, you can say what you want about Saban, but Saban he runs a clean program, a good program, tries to get the best guys in there. And one of the things I respect him for is he says, look, if you join our football team, even if you're not performing up to the level that we expect you to perform to, you won't be cut. You may ride the bench, you may never play, but your scholarship will never go away from you. So he feels like he's out there to build men because he's getting guys from inner city areas that never will have an opportunity to graduate from college. And now they do. And even though they're not playing, he's still giving them that opportunity. And so you contrast that with the trash that is their basketball coach. It makes you wonder what's going on in the athletic department's mind when they're backing this guy up. That's just not what you think Alabama should be. They should be an example, not this guy.
And then Saban took a shot at him.
Yeah.
He said there's no such thing as being at the wrong place in the wrong time, or at the wrong time, which, Nick has said things over the years that you kind of, raise your eyebrows, but that's a direct shot. That'd be like Mike taking a shot at Bob publicly on a national stage. Hard to fathom that happened. It's good, though. I mean, he's on the right side of history. I think the more we learn about this, now that they're out of the tournament, I think you're going to see a little bit of change in attitude toward that whole thing. But I don't really have a whole lot of respect for Nate Oates. especially after the pregame pat down that he allowed. And then he described it as, oh, it was like we were going to take flight and they were patting me down or patting Miller down to see if, like he was going through TSA. Come on, dude.
Look, I'm going to bring up what Hud said in our interview. If what happened with the Trump thing and all that in the locker room happened when if we were undefeated and maybe getting into a Cotton Bowl, if that would have happened during that time, nobody would have said anything. And Alabama basketball fans are like, oh, this is no big deal. Now that they're out of the tournament, watch, all of a sudden it's going to be a big deal.
Guaranteed.
It's going to magically, blow up.
I will give the Athletic credit. They were hard on Oates and Miller and that whole situation. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of sports media pressing them on the whole issue. But I think that's going to change now that they've lost. Now, I haven't been really paying attention to the sports media since the game because we've been busy. But I think Monday, Tuesday, you see some stories that you haven't seen yet on Alabama basketball. And to my point about being busy this weekend, you see me in my soccer garb here. I got to give a shout out to the girls. Formerly the, what were we last year? The Mermaids.
Rainbow Mermaids, was it?
Formerly the Rainbow Mermaids. This year we are the Cajun Racers. I let the team vote on their name every year. Cajun Racers this year. We were 3-0, top of the table going into the game against the Cheetahs. And last year they were our arch nemesis. They ended up beating us in a pretty contested, hotly contested game. Well, we went in and took care of business. 8-1, full time. Now we are 4-0, 17 goals for, 1 against, and at the very top of the table in the league. Shout out to the girls playing hard. My strikers are ridiculous. Play great team defense. Own possession. Good times, man. It's a lot of fun to coach youth.
That's impressive. And you played against the Cheaters, or was it the Cheetahs?
Cheetahs. Now there was a little bit of shenanigans going on, so
you're
not too far off of that.
Of course.
Yeah, they were getting all the calls, man. I think they were just trying to keep those poor girls in the game. So my girls are dogs. They're vicious, man. I can't pull them off. You got to pull the dogs off, like it's sportsmanship, right? They send out emails in the league. Hey, don't beat the other team too badly. Hey, we sub. We do equal playing time. I'm sorry. I just got a collection of dogs.
That's what's wrong about the world. You don't beat them too bad. Everybody gets a trophy.
Thank you.
Screw that, man.
You got to toe the line as the coach, though, man.
I know.
Because if you look like you're trying to step on necks, they're going to write you an email. You're going to get reprimanded. That's the difference between soccer and baseball. In baseball, there was no mercy when we played back in the day. Absolutely no mercy. If you want to score 40 runs, you're going to do it. And you got to get 3 outs. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No clocks, no timeouts, nobody to come and save you. You need outs.
Look, I'll tell you, when my dad was a coach, and my dad coached baseball, played baseball for 50 years. So when he coached me growing up, a team was beating us by it was bad. It was Gil Mesh. I don't know if you remember him, pitched for the
sure do.
So he pitched against me. Funny story about him hitting me. And anyway, long story short, they were kicking our butts because they were always the team to beat. And I was acting all pissed off in the dugout. My dad came up, "What's your problem?" I said, "They're running the score up on us." And he said, "Well, stop them. Go do something. Go score some runs. Man up." And my dad never got fired up, but he wasn't playing. He said, "Well, go score some runs if you don't like it." So you toughen you up. You learn how to lose.
Shout out to Ryan bouncing in and saying sweep the leg. And look, you know me. I'm going to go for the jugular. So when we started to get up and the other team kind of started quitting a little bit, so I started putting in the girls that I want to get more development out of. We still kept scoring. This is the second game this season where you try to get more work in for the players that don't typically attack, and we just kept scoring. And the girls were crying. It's coaching girls is coaching girls is a trip. Look, they're so smart and they listen to everything you say, and they're a lot more aware. The boys are like, they're putting grass in their hair, rolling around in the outfield. They don't care. They're just there for, shenanigans and foolishness. The girls are like very intense, very into the game. They know what the score is. They know that they're in first place. You know what I mean? They're way more engaged, which is cool because it kind of puts them more on your level. So I feel like I can coach them more, and kind of be more tactical and things. You tell the boys something to all right, go guys, scoop the ball, set your feet, make a good strong throw to first base. Kid picks the ball up, throws it behind his back. This is a whole different deal. So
explains a lot about life growing up and dating women. And then, they get a little bit mental and Yeah, now explains a lot because guys are just sitting there going, I don't know what just hit me.
Yeah, the
Girls
ladies
are prepared.
the ladies expect something out of this. The boys are like, I'm just happy to be here. I don't know what's next. I didn't think past the date. But anyway, let me do sponsors. Big thanks to Patriot Steel Group, Chris Russo and his team, Brandon Gallet and Reed Barbier. 100 years combined experience in the oil and gas industry. Chris Russo has been a great friend to Ragin' Review and Ragin' Cajun baseball. So please, if you can, support Patriot Steel Group. Get more information on them on their LinkedIn page, Patriot Steel Group LinkedIn page. They can, look, these guys know everything that you could possibly need to know about tubulars and seamless tubulars and resistance welded. More information on the website that they have. I don't know enough to be able to be very informative, but as far as they go, they're great friends to us, great friends of Ragin' Cajun Sports. So please patronize Patriot Steel Group. Lafayette Roofing and General Contractors, our friend Darren Domingue and his family, the team over there at Lafayette Roofing and General Contractors, they're licensed and insured, locally owned and family operated. 10,000 satisfied customers cannot be wrong. Give Darren and the crew a call today, 337-237-ROOF. That's 237-7663. You can visit them at Lafayette-roofing.com. Don't forget the dash. Sagging, signs of water damage, dark spots, holes, cracked or torn shingles, large amounts of granulars in your gutters, all signs that you need some work done on the roof. They also do painting, interior work, lots of other different things in your home renovation. They have 3 different options for financing. They will get your job done. They'll do it efficiently, and they'll do it for the correct price. Lafayette Roofing and General Contractors, great friend to the Ragin' Review podcast and Louisiana Athletics. Gordon McKernan, Injury Attorneys, the official injury attorney for Ragin' Review podcast. Offices in Lafayette, Alexandria, Lake Charles, Monroe, Shreveport, Zachary, Denham Springs, Gonzales, Hammond, and of course their home office in Baton Rouge, where the Chief Happiness Officer, Penny, resides. Go check out Penny and the team at Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. Remember, when you hire G, you get the G guarantee. If they don't win your case, you owe absolutely nothing to them. Not a fee, not a dime, nothing at all. 888-532-1573 is the toll-free number, or getgordon.com, getgordon.com, get Gordon and get it done. Thanks to all our fantastic sponsors that make the show possible. So, Nick, we played a lot of baseball this week, another 5-game week, 2 in a row, which is great. 10 games in 2 weeks as a fan, always something to pay attention to. This week was a little bit more challenging. You had SELA, Southeastern, whatever you want to call it. I don't even really know what they call themselves. We call them 15 different things. I should probably be more sensitive to their name, all things considered with our situation. But the Southeastern Lions came to town, which was a good game on Wednesday. We'll start with Tuesday, Grambling. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it. It is what it is. It's one of those games. It's RPI killer. It's a game that you wish you didn't have to play. I was praying for rain. Obviously, that did not happen. But again, I guess it's an opportunity to get better, get some hacks, get some pitches in. What did you see out of Grambling? Maybe that we could appreciate more? I didn't see a whole lot. What are your thoughts on Grambling?
Yeah, looking at the pregame and how they rank up nationally in the NCAA, they were top, I think, 40 in stolen bases. So you knew they had some speed on the bases. You knew if they got on base, they'd do some things, and they've been successful so far this season. We just never gave them the opportunity.
Right.
I thought our pitching was excellent. I thought our bats came around. No, we didn't beat them 22-0, but we didn't have to. So it was encouraging all the way around. Grambling was kind of what I expected them to be. I thought they would give us a little bit more of a challenge. I thought it might be a situation where they might have a pitcher who throws a lot of off-speed stuff and keeps us off balance, kind of like, again, Jackson State a few years ago. But all in all, I think just a healthy performance for our team and what I expected to see. And I didn't expect a blowout. I didn't expect them to beat the tires off of them. I thought it was going to play out just as it did. But good to see that our pitching was able to get a what was it, 1 run? It was a 13-1, I think was the final score.
13-1. We threw 4 guys, and we'll get into the stats in just a minute. But yeah, it was good to see some consistency out of the pitching staff.
Yeah, and just something that we have not seen so far this season. But I think is trending upward. And look, they gave up an early run, but shut the door after that. One thing that I think we still need to pay attention to, Sam Hill came in, he got the win for the Cajuns, but got to cut down on the free bases. And I know you're going to get the stats in a little bit, but 2 hit by pitch, 2 wild pitches, 3 base on balls. We got to cut down on that as a pitching staff. Still something that we see across the board that we struggle with a little bit. But again, all in all, 13-1 game, you can't complain.
Not a whole lot you can complain about, but we can comment on certain things that maybe expectations or whatever. So Sam gets the start. He goes 5, gives up a hit, a run, and an earned run. Like Nick said, I think he gave up 6 total free passes, 3 base on balls. He did have 6 strikeouts, and he threw 79 pitches in 5 innings, which is pretty efficient. The issue here is that you get off to a rocky start. I think they walked the leadoff guy, and then maybe we kicked the ball. No, that wasn't against Grambling. But either way, I think they stole. It was just rocky. Wild pitch, like you mentioned. You give up the run in the first inning, and yes, it's Grambling. They earn the run. Against better competition, you put yourself directly behind the 8 ball starting the game like that. Now, I'll give him credit because he definitely bounced back, and he was strong the next 4 innings. There's no question about that. Still, you can't walk 3 guys. You can't walk 3 guys against Grambling. You can't walk 3 guys against Mississippi State. It doesn't matter who you play. Again, we cannot continue to walk people. Now, David Christie came in, gave you a great inning of work, 2 Ks and no walks. Stephen Cash. We haven't seen much of Stephen Cash. He came in for an out, no base on balls. At this point, I'm just going to give people kudos for not walking people. We saw Connor Ducey. Came in for 2 1/3, gave up a hit, no walks. So those were the 4 pitchers that you saw. Kind of Johnny All-staffed it, but the game ended early. We run ruled him in 6.5. I can't remember the last time we run ruled anybody, but it's been a while. So I left practice that night and I was headed to go to the game, and I heard Top and Jay say, well, this thing's about to wrap up. And if I remember right, I thought only Sunday games were able to be run rules if you agree prior. I guess the coaching staffs agreed that it was going to be a run rule situation.
Yeah, that happens. If I remember correctly, back in the day, that would happen occasionally during midweek games where, you don't want to play till midnight and have to drive home.
Sure.
Now, there were situations, and I have no inside information, so I don't know if that was the case. If they agreed upon it before the game, sometimes coaches will get together during a game and say, hey, we're up 13-1. Do you want to, give it another inning? Mutual respect between teams, they give them that out. So that does happen sometimes, but I have seen it in midweek games, and that has been sort of a trend in college baseball where they do end it early midweek, just so teams could get home, especially those who are driving in for games rather than a BYU situation where they're already here, so we're not going to end it.
Which makes sense, and we should do things that make more sense in college baseball. Stephen Cash and Connor Ducey. First time we got to see those guys throw some live pitches. Stephen Cash only threw 4 pitches and got an out. Connor threw 12 pitches in 2 1/3. Any comments on those 2 guys? What'd they do for you?
No, I think they came in and got the job done. I am going to switch it to Sam a little bit because I think for Hill, again, he settled down after the first inning. But what I need from him going forward is we may need him situationally in tournaments, maybe in the conference tournament, maybe in a regional, maybe in a super regional.
I'll say this. I can tell by the way that they're using him. They think that he has a high ceiling. And you can tell that the dude's got a major league hammer. He's got some stuff.
100%.
However,
we just need him to get off to a good start because if they
got
need
to pitch.
if we got to bring him in the not ninth, but like 6th, 7th inning to strike out a couple guys or get out of trouble.
Right.
He can't have the performance he had against Grambling in a tournament in a big setting situation like that. So that's what I need to see against Sam. But again, maturity, he settled down, he got the job done. And we had some guys behind him that did a really good job. So that's all I would like to see for him going forward is to get off to a little bit better start. If he gets in trouble later, that happens with pitchers. They get off to a good start, and then we have to pull them a little bit earlier than we like. Not happy about that, but I think a little more comfortable in knowing that he will come in and be a stopgap if we need him in a situational situation.
I agree. 6 Ks in 5 innings, I'll take that. But
Absolutely.
I think Sam is going to get some opportunities to be your Sunday guy, and we'll get more into the Sunday start as we go. But 5 innings on Tuesday. A lot of people had speculation that Mizzou was going to move up to Saturday, and then obviously with the doubleheader that ended up happening, it just made sense that somebody else was going to come behind him. Sam, I thought, was going to be the guy. Tommy Ray also looked really good on Wednesday, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But he was an option as well. I'm glad that Sam. We got to find somebody else to fill that role, especially with the injury to Toit. And it sounds like the Toit injury might be a lot worse than we initially thought. So we're gonna need somebody to step in and fill that role. So good to see Sam pitching better and more often. I think that they have a high hope for him. Jeremy Newman started the game for Grambling, went 1 2/3, gave up a hit and 2 runs, no earned runs because they were kicking it around early. He did walk 4, 1 strikeout through 38 pitches. They came behind him with Michael Sims III, 1 1/3, a hit, a run, an earned run, 2 Ks. Then Brett Washington we saw for an inning. He gave up 2 hits, 3 earned runs, no strikeouts, no walks. Esteban Tavares, 2/3 of an inning, 4 hits, 7 runs, 7 earned runs, and that inning was bolstered by a mammoth moonshot from our backstop, who is just in fuego right now. Keith Carpenter, an inning and a third, a hit, and a base on ball. And that does it for Grambling. Offensively, I mean, it is what it is. It was a barrage, and it has been for about a week. You know, I put out the question on Twitter, what is the Cajun version of Gorilla Ball? Somebody said Rougarou Ball. I think I'm going to go with that. Shout out to Caleb Broussard. I'm pretty sure it was Caleb. Right now we got a couple of guys in this lineup that are just destroying the baseball. Ben Robichaux continues to be good out of the leadoff slot. 2 runs, 1 hit in 3 at-bats. He had 2 walks as well. His on-base percentage is through the roof. Caleb Selly gets in the game, does not get a hit. Debo, 1 run, 3 walks in 4 official at-bats. Carson Roccaforte, 2 runs scored, no hits, but 2 strikeouts. Kind of feels like Rock's starting to turn the corner and get back to 2022 Rock. So this game notwithstanding, he had a pretty strong week. Landry Wilkerson got in the game, did not get a hit. Heath Hood, in 4 official at-bats, 2 runs, 3 hits, 3 RBI. All reliable, we always say it. Luke Uhas with a pinch hit, single. John Taylor, who's another Cajun that's catching fire right now, both on defense and at the plate. He had 2 runs scored, no hits in 2 plate appearances. He's just been good, and he looks like he's getting better, which is a great sign because, again, we need some consistency in the lineup. I think at this point, we're into conference. It's good to see the same lineup kind of, rounding out, same names in that lineup. I know it's still going to be chaotic sometimes, but anyway, I'm glad to see John Taylor getting a lot of playing time. Julian Brock, the aforementioned Cajun backstop, 2 hits in 3 appearances, 2 runs scored, 6 RBI. Again, an absolute moonshot home run, grand slam home run. And then he hit I don't know if it was was it a 2-run shot that he hit, or was it a solo later in that game?
I don't remember. That whole game was a blur to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he hit a 2-run job later in that inning, or later in the game. No, it wasn't the same inning. He hit 2 home runs in the same inning. He started it with a 2-run job, and then he hit the grand slam towards the end of the inning. That's what happened. You're right. When we do the show on Sunday and we played Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and 2 on Saturday.
Weeks ago.
Yes, it feels like last week. So Julian's just in fuego. Clay Wargo got an at-bat and got in the game, gave Julian a blow. Lee Amade also got in the game, no hits. Peyton Lejeune, he's another one. It looks like, first of all, he hits lefties really well. Apparently his numbers are much better from the left side, but he's been murdering left-handed pitching from the right side. So it seems like anytime we do a matchup for righty-lefty, he comes in, and he's been successful a large percentage of the time. So good to see him get another hit. Ball right down the line. Will Veillon, another one, starting to round into form. Maybe he's starting to be a little bit more healthy. 1 hit, 2 runs scored, and 2 official at-bats. Did have 4 official at-bats, 2 walks. And then Trey LaFleur got in the game, did not get a hit. For Grambling, I mean, really nothing to write home about. They had 2 total hits. They did score a run, basically, that we handed to them. And that was basically the night. Any comments about the offense?
No, what it was good to see is I feel like we're starting to have a little bit more patience at the plate. And that was frustrating, I think, the first couple weekend series, especially against Rice, where I thought we had an opportunity to sweep them and we didn't, because I felt like we were pressing. And sometimes our hitters look at the McNeese game, right? We were pressing. We were trying to hit the ball out. We were striking out, and we weren't patient at the plate. I feel like that's starting to come around, and you saw that with the 6 or 7 walks that we drew. I don't know that we did that earlier in the season, or even last season early in the season. If you remember, we got off to a terrible start last year.
It's true.
Where we were barely above 500 in conference, going into conference play. So it was good to see a little bit. That was my takeaway, is that when we beat a team that we should have beat by the margin, we should have beat them, and we showed a little bit of patience at the plate. So that was encouraging to see.
I think we have a couple of guys that are growing up. Okay, JT being one of those guys, getting some D1 reps, expecting to be in the lineup. I think, and this is probably an easy assumption to make, but I think adding Ben Robichaux at the top of this lineup has changed a whole lot. Max Marshak's one of our favorite players. We've been on Max since he signed to play here. He's going through it right now. I mean, he just is. Everything is out in front. He's off his back foot. He's not staying back. I don't know what's going on with Max. I hope he gets back into form, because when he does, this lineup is always better, because he adds an element that just makes us better. He makes the offense go. But right now, Ben Robichaux's on-base percentage, the way that he sees the ball, his ability to have discipline at the plate and not swing it trash out of the zone, I mean, that guy's a threat. Also, the fact that he's 5'6". I mean, his strike zone is the size of big cats. I mean, you can't throw strikes to this guy. But even more so, his bat speed is spectacular. He's got plus everything. He's a great base runner. He's the perfect addition to a chaotic offense that we needed. And credit to him. He's young. They just stuck him at the top of the lineup, and he's just, all he does is get on base.
Look,
so
like I
shout
said,
out to Ben.
Before the season started, I was told by a very reliable source, this is probably watching us right now, that our
Wink,
younger
wink,
guys,
nudge.
that our younger guys are going to make a difference in the lineup, that they can really hit the ball. And you're seeing that with Ben. You're seeing that with JT. You're seeing that with the young guys. All they needed was the opportunity. But you can get the opportunity and not take advantage of it. And these guys are taking advantage of it, and they're battling. And look, like you said, Max is going to come around. It's just a matter of when. And if he still stays at the bottom of that lineup, Robe loved having a good hitter at the bottom of the lineup to turn it around back to the top.
Double lead off.
I think that is a perfect place for him in the lineup. I think when he starts hitting like we know Max is going to hit, like you said, it's going to make it even more difficult for opposing teams to be able to pitch around guys, because there are very few holes in our lineup right now. So really good to see guys like Ben, guys like JT, Debo, Heath. I mean, Hoodie, come on, dude. Dude's Mr. Automatic. It's good to see those guys that you're going to get production from, and then the other guys try to lift them up and get a little bit of production as well. So I like how the lineup is set up right now.
I don't know when it's going to happen. And if I had my druthers, I would pick Southern Miss. But Max is going to get a chance again, and he's going to explode and have a huge weekend. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's coming. And when it does, this lineup, not like we're not hitting already, but this lineup is going to be extra scary, like Campbell scary. Anyway, we turn around on Wednesday, and we play Southeastern, who has always been a quality club under Matt Reiser. They always come to the tee. They always play us tough. I don't know, and maybe, Nick, while I'm reading off, maybe you can look this up. I'm not sure how successful they've been this year. The Southland is always a decent conference. I know they're 12-9. I'm not sure how strong their out-of-conference schedule was, but Southeastern came in and gave us a fight, like they always do. Tommy Ray got the start on the bump. 3 innings of one-hit baseball. He had a walk. He did have 2 strikeouts. The thing that stood out to me about Tommy was that he looked comfortable. Everything he threw looked intentional. He was locating the fastball early. He was touching 94 with that fastball, by the way. His changeup looked fluid. He had late life on pretty much everything he threw. This was a version of Tommy Ray that I have seldom seen, and maybe haven't seen this version of Tommy. He looked spectacular on Wednesday in his 3 innings. Now, I know he kind of petered off, started throwing some balls, and he ended up throwing 40 pitches in 3 innings, which is still not all that bad, somewhat economical. But did Tommy look like he had a little extra with him to you on Wednesday?
Yeah, he did. And I think to answer your question, Southeastern is not a bad ball club. So they got off to like a fire start. I think they went 5, 6, 7-0 to start the season. Now, against some lesser quality teams, but again, they beat the teams that they should have beat. Then you got to think, I don't know what they were ranked at the time, but Auburn, who is currently ranked, they beat them 2 out of 3 on a weekend in Auburn. Nice. So Southeastern, and if you remember, we talked about this earlier in the season, Southeastern was leading the country in like hits and runs and RBIs and batting average. They were just hitting the ball all over the place. So you almost felt like Tommy came in with a purpose, knowing that they had some success earlier in the season, but just overall great to see him get off to a good start. Now, I think, did he come back? Did he pitch again this weekend? I can't remember if we saw Tommy this weekend.
I don't think so. And I was just getting ready to say, to me, that performance told me as a fan, this guy he's pitching right now for his Sunday life. He wants to start on Sunday. That's what I got out of it. Now, he only got himself in trouble because of the hit by pitches. And the hit by pitches, I mean, that's a Matt Reiser staple. They lean into the pitches. They stand on the line. They crowd the plate. It's so aggravating. And I know as a pitcher, it's got to be a pain in the ass, but he really only got himself in trouble because of that. And then he did have that walk in the third inning that kind of put him behind the 8 ball. But I was curious if somebody else had a similar thought about him pitching the way he did on Wednesday. I mean, he was just on fire.
Yeah. And again, like you said, it may be that he's competing for a Sunday spot, but even if he doesn't have a Sunday spot, think about, again, I'm looking way ahead and I shouldn't be, but I'm looking at tournament play. And if Tommy Ray is our number 4 starter after all is said and done, holy cow. I know. That means that we have some horses ahead of him. So I think he could fill in really nicely in a Sunday spot. But if he doesn't and he's our number 4, that is nothing to be sad about, because that just tells you we're feeling confident in our starters. And I know that's light years ahead of what we felt going into the season. There were a bunch of question marks going into the season on feeling like it's a bunch of bullpen pitchers that we're trying to make into starters. But I think guys are really settling into their roles right now. So look, if Tommy's a number 4, that's only good for the team as a whole.
Agree. In the 4th inning, Cooper Rawls comes out and continues to be lights out. I think his ERA by the end of this outing was sub 1. Which is outrageous. He did end up getting the win, so he's 5-0. He vultured 5. no starts, 5 wins. I love that. He went the short route for the W's, but he's 5-0. It's a cool line for Coop. He goes 3 solid, no hits, no earned runs. He did walk a guy, 2 strikeouts, 45 pitches thrown. Cooper Rawls, Jay made the comment that, well, he didn't know a lot of people that thought that Cooper would come out and be so effective. And if you saw my smart-ass remark, I said, well, if you didn't think that Cooper was going to come in and be one of these guys that we're going to be, relied upon to have success on the mound, then you need to hang around better people.
Dude's 5-0 on the season. He was 4-0 before then. Come on, man.
We saw, first of all, we thought that Cooper would get more run before he made the start. Well, no, he came in relief against Louisiana Tech and pitched those 7 strong. Well, it looked unhittable, was the National Pitcher of the Week. And we saw what he was capable of doing that night, and then beyond that into the rest of the season. But this year, especially with the losses of Bo Bonds and all the other guys that moved on, Chipper Menard and things like that, you had to think that Cooper Rawls was going to be at the top of that list. That were, those guys that we were going to look to in the pen to come out and give you some long, solid innings in relief, and maybe even make some midweek starts, which I still think is in Cooper Rawls' future. But I mean, Nick, what can you say about Coop?
Look,
all he does is win, number 1, sub 1 ERA at the end of this performance. And not only that, if you got a 5-game week, you got to save pitching for the weekend. And especially, we didn't know this at the time, but the doubleheader on Saturday. So Cooper, and this is just one time, he did it twice this weekend, saved pitching, gave you another solid 3, great outing. I'm running out of superlatives to talk about Cooper Rawls.
But did we have that consistency last year is my question. I don't think so.
Not out of the pen.
Not out of the pen. And that is what is so good to see. And maybe this is Tibb finally getting his guys in place. This may be the recruiting finally, Deggs getting his guys in place. But it is so good to see some middle relief come in and shut the door. Something we've been lacking the last couple of years, but I want to put an asterisk by your comment about Chipper Menard. When we get to conference play talk later in this episode, we got to talk about that situation.
I can't wait. I can't wait. But going back to your point, out of the pen, everything was up in the air. You never knew. Now, we started to nail it down towards the end of the season, especially when we made our run. But nothing like this. I mean, Cooper comes in and leaves no doubt. And that's what I like about the guy. Very rarely does he get himself in trouble. He'll walk a guy here and there, but most of the time, he leaves no doubt. He finishes you. He has no mercy. He has no regard for family, friends. He just puts you to sleep. And we have lacked that here for 3-4 years. People that would just come out and put you to sleep. Demo's a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, we haven't had anything like that. And now Bo Bonds was, but he was going to start for this team this year. Bo Bonds was another one of those revelations that came out, and he was a key cog to that run last year. But losing him, that leaves a big void. So guys like Cooper, they have the opportunity, and to his credit, that's all he's done is taken it and run with it.
That's what's so good. I mean, that's your prototypical Degs team is you give guys a chance and let them take advantage of it. And guys are stepping up. And again, I feel like, what is this, year 4 for him? Year 3 kind of because of COVID, but
yeah, kind of.
It feels like he's starting to get his guys and his system. And look, Degs drives us all crazy sometimes with the decision-making that he makes, and he's aggressive when I feel like we shouldn't be aggressive early in the ball game when it's no score and you guys have a guy stealing and a hit and run, and now you got 2 outs. It drives me nuts, but it feels like he's finally got his pieces in place to be successful. And look, again, I'll say it, how far ahead are we this year in pitching and hitting than years past, especially last year? Again, we were pissed off this time last year. We are so far ahead of that. So maybe his pieces are finally falling into place. But I can't say anything better about Cooper than you've said. Really about Cooper, about Fluno. Moody struggled a little bit this weekend, but he's Moody. He'll have his off days. So yeah, happy the way that game turned out, especially when, again, like I said, just a couple weeks ago, you had one of the top offensive teams in the country and you shut them out. And I get it. We didn't score a whole lot of runs, but that's what you get when you play Southeastern. It's going to be one of those small ball, steal bases types of games.
They muddy it up. They
muddy it up. Yeah. And we have found ways to win against different situations. If we got to swing the bat, we can swing the bat. If we got to steal, we got to play small ball, we can do it. So just all in all, pleased with the way things turned out on Wednesday night.
Agree. You know what we should do? So we don't get in trouble because people get mad at us for this. We need to set aside a segment to complain about things that Degs does that drives me nuts. So we don't get in trouble. We'll set it aside. So if you don't want to hear it, you can skip that part. But there's definitely things that we're gonna talk about. But
love the guy though, but he drives us nuts sometimes.
I love my kids, but they drive me nuts. It is what it is. But anyway, talking about, you made the comment about Moody. Moody coming in and pitching too solid kind of gave me. See, the thing about that is that it wasn't just a live bullpen. That was some stress pitches. We're only up by 2. They bring him in to finish it off, the 8th and the 9th. I mean, at that point, it gave me another clue that they were going to move off of him on Saturday. I don't love it, especially when he gets tagged for tipping pitches. I think I would have brought him back to see if he could fix that. But again, that should go into the segment about me complaining about how we manage pitchings. Anyway, he looked great in relief in the 8th and the 9th. Carson Fluno again comes in, pitches an inning, gives up a hit. He does get 2 strikeouts, walks a guy. He got himself into a little bit of hot grease, but to his credit, he got out of it. For Southeastern, Jay Long got the start, went 3 2/3, 8 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, struck out 3. I thought he was really effective against our lineup. Not sure if they were just trying to get some guys some work or Johnny Allstaff it, but I think all things considered, Jay Long was good. I would have probably left him in a while. Reed Reynolds comes in, gives up a hit and absolutely nothing else in 1 1/3. Then you saw, guys that probably needed to get work. Levi Bennett, Trey Harrington, Dalton Asfalm, each went an inning apiece. Only Bennett gave up a hit and an earned run. He had 2 walks. Trey Harrington also had a walk. But for Southeastern, once again, they have quality pitching. They have quality depth. They do what they do. They muddy up the game, and they did that. For the Cajuns offensively, Ben Robichaux, a hit and a walk. So all he does is get on base, as per usual. Rock had a hit and an RBI. Did have another strikeout. His strikeout numbers are crazy compared to last year. Debo, another hit and 4 at-bats. Heath Hood, hit and 4 at-bats. He's been on base for the Cajuns in every game that we've played for 42 consecutive baseball games. I saw that graphic on the broadcast. Julian Brock, 2 hits and 4 at-bats. Did not homer in this game. I know that's a newsflash, shocking news. Julian didn't hit one out. No homers, no RBIs in this game. John Taylor, once again, scored a run, got a hit, 4 at-bats. And then Max Marshak got a hit and an RBI and 4 at-bats. So nobody else that got at-bats. Connor Higgs did get in the game, had an at-bat, no hits. Lee Amade got into the game as a defensive replacement. Nick, comments on the offense from the Southeastern game?
Yeah, I think the only takeaway for me is you left 11 guys on base, and I feel like we had some opportunities to push those across home plate. But all in all, you're going to have these games throughout the season where you face, maybe a pitcher that's hot, or you have the pitcher by committee thing, which is hard to get. I mean, you always want to see a pitcher once through the lineup and then get comfortable and start hitting the ball. But when you go by committee, then you're starting all over again. So right. I get it. It's a midweek game, but pleased with the way, again, our bullpen propped up our offense, which wasn't producing like they normally do. So it was good to see all around. We'll need this kind of win later in the season, especially when we go into tournaments like last year. We found ways to win, different ways to win, and I think this was a key to the future. So good to see all in all. I really have no complaints on this game.
Agreed. And then going back to pitching, Champ RT, Southeastern's best hitter and probably is an all-conference player. Hell, he might challenge to be an All-American. That guy's good. He had 2 hits. He was the only Southeastern player to get a hit off of Ray, Rawls, Fluno, Moody. 9 innings of 2-hit baseball from the Cajuns. That's pretty damn good. I mean, there's really nothing to complain about right there. I mean, we did walk 3 guys, but 2 hits.
Strong 3 guys. I'll take 3 walks a game. I mean, that's not bad. We're good. When
I'd like to keep it around 8,
right?
I'd like to keep it around 2. Yeah, we did strike out 8. So, of course, that's important. Look, every pitcher had 2 strikeouts. So, some pretty good consistency. Everybody had a walk except for Brendan Moody, who came in to close it. So, of course, you don't want to see your closer walking people. All in all around performance, good win against a team that always gives us problems. Then we get on the bus. We head down I-10 to play South Alabama, a team that, and we'll spend some time on this, Nick. We grew up in the era where South Alabama is a hated rival. We hate their guts. We, come up with anything bad to say about them, and we're behind it. I still feel that way. I understand that the last, 6-7 years, it hasn't really been all that bad, especially after Swagger, he's gone, and some of these other guys that just really like to rub it in your face. It's been kind of nip and tuck, but it feels like the Cajuns have taken it's like we're back to the Cajuns being on top. Now, we lead the overall series, so, we can throw that in their face, but those heated rivalries, those weekends where you always felt like we were on the brink of a fight, it doesn't really feel like that to me as much. Of course, I still want to beat them. I hate them. I'm always going to hate them. They're the Falcons of for the Saints to me. I know everybody hates Coastal, but that's an easy hatred. Southern Miss is a rival, and that's more of a newly rekindled rivalry in baseball. South Al is your first love or your first hate. Still, yeah. You still feel that way?
And I think back in the Kittrell days, I think his teams, and look,
100%.
Robe in his younger days, he'd get our team fired up. Like, you're going out there to fight. And Kittrell had the same kind of feel about it. So you had 2 guys who wanted to win, and if they had to bow up, they would. And I remember the last time, and I couldn't tell you if this was 98, 99, where it wasn't a bench clearing brawl, but they came out and met at home plate, and that was intense. But I think Calvi is such. So then you go. I mean, Robe softened up a lot as he went in his career, and then you bring in a guy like Calvi, who is so hard to hate. I mean, you gotta think that I went out there a few years ago, and I was with Marla and some of the cooking club folks, and we were out there kind of tailgating, drinking after a game. I think we kicked their ass or whatever. And Calvi and his wife come over and they start talking to us. And some kids yell, "Hey, this is a drag county." And he's like, "Screw off, dude. Like, go away." So the dude came talk to us. I mean, he's so likable. And when they come to Lafayette, his wife hangs out with the cooking club and we're all friends. So it just makes it hard to hate South Al. And I think he does things the right way. But regardless, it doesn't matter if it's Calvi or Kittrell or whoever, and whether or not you feel like the rivalry is intense. I guarantee you both teams are told of the rivalry in the past, and both teams, every single series is weird. It's never feeling like it should be. I can't tell you the last time either one of our teams swept each other, even though we should have this weekend.
2 years ago, we went over there and got swept.
You're right. So, but it doesn't happen often. And when it does, it really pisses me off. But all in all, it's just hard to hate him because of Calvi and the respect I have for him and how nice of a dude he is. It's really hard to hate them, but I still want to beat their butts every single time we play, just because I remember those days where I had that hatred for him, right?
Thing about Kittrell he was a villain to us. And you got to have that in a league if you want heated rivalries or interest. You know, we talk about the ice skaters sometimes. People love the games because it was a fight that a hockey game would break out in.
And we wanted to beat the Baton Rouge Kingfish so bad. And we did. They could never beat us. We hated them and we beat them every time. That was so great.
And since South Al, when South Al would come to the Teague and they'd start their foolishness, it felt like you were on the edge of a real fight. You know, not like the fake fight that happened at the Pete this weekend that we'll talk about later, but real fight. Like there actually were fights in the past between these two programs, and you know how much Robe wanted to beat them, and Kittrell was the ultimate competitor, and I'll always respect him for that. I hated his guts when I was like a teenager, you know, moving up, you know, like right around, like somewhere around 13 to 16. I just hated his guts. But you got Calvi that comes in, and I mean, like you said, he's a great dude, but it just felt like he's a carryover from Kittrell, and you still hated him, and they were good. They're still good. This year they're awful, and we could talk about that in a second. But they've been good since Kittrell. I think it was 3 years ago when they won their regional and they made it all the way to a super and almost got out of that too. But regardless, South Alabama is South Alabama. That rivalry, I'll never forget it. Doesn't matter how much better one team gets than the other. I still circle South Al on the calendar, especially when we travel to Mobile. By the way, before we get too far into this, I see a bunch of you guys in the Twitter space. If you have any comments, please request to speak. We'll get you in. If you're on the YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or Facebook chat, please engage. We do this for you guys. We want to hear what you thought about the series, South Alabama, whatever. If you have a South Al story, please get in. Oops, can't say South Al, sorry. South Alabama, anything you got. If you guys want to get it on, we'll read it. We'll post it up, and we'll get your comments on the pod. I mentioned that they had fallen off. By the numbers, they're really bad, Nick. If you want to pull it up, you can, but I can tell you off the top of my head, their team ERA going into the series was 5.48. Their team ERA was 5.48. Now, that is a Mark Calvi team with a guy that's he was a borderline All-American in Jeremy Lee, who I have no idea what happened to that kid. I know he had an injury last year, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it was really bad. I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on with Jeremy Lee, and we saw him on Saturday, but they did lose some guys to the big leagues. They have some turnover, but man, they can't throw it. I don't know what happened to that. And that's their cornerstone of their baseball team. Going into this season, all I could hear about was, look, they're going to pitch, they're going to play defense. They were very good defensively, timely hitting and pitching last year. I have no idea what's going on over there. And then to make matters worse, their team batting average is 246. Team batting average going into the series. 246. That's like 50 points below where the Cajuns are right now. And they're out of conference. Meh. You had a couple of games in there where you felt like they were outmatched, but overall, they have lost some head scratchers, and it kind of sucks that they were that bad. Look, and then we'll talk about how we blew the lead, but just overall impressions of what's going on at South Al.
I'm going to tell you, in the Sun Belt, they rank in the bottom 3 or 4 in every category. And I'll give you some perspective. Batting average, we're 83rd, they're 245th. Runs per game, we're 81, they're 161. They're not top 150 in any category except for ERA, where they're right at 150 at 5.88. We're 30. And their whip is 143. That's top 150. Everything else is in the 200s. So when you look at South Alabama and you want to say, oh yeah, but you know, they're better than that. To give some perspective, Grambling as a whole, when you're looking at NCAA stats and rankings, they are way ahead of South Al because stolen bases, they're like 45 or something. And South Alabama is 212. So they don't even compare to a Grambling. Grambling could go in there and give them a competitive 3-game series when you're looking at just statistics. So when somebody wants to come and say, well, no, I know we should have swept, but South Alabama is better than you think they are. No, man, they're really not. And I think that's our frustration, is that Friday night, we don't look at it as winning 2 out of 3, which is a good accomplishment. I think you and I expect better, and I would expect that the coaching staff thinks better and the team thinks better than that as well. That when you got a team that's an RPI killer, and you should, in every facet of the game, dominate them, and you get a 7-run lead and you let them come back, come on, man. You got to do better than that.
It's a good point, and some of it's situational, right? I've been in baseball my whole life, all right? Expecting to sweep a team is a fool's errand. You can look at the schedule at the beginning of this week and say you got Southeastern, you got Grambling, and you got 3 at a bad South Al. If you expect to go 5-0, you don't know what the hell you're looking at. This is baseball, all right? Now, I'm going to kind of do some double talk here, because you go into Friday, you blow out. I mean, it was kind of nip and tuck early. We were, Jake couldn't get – I thought we overextended Jake on Friday, and I guess we'll start to move into the game. I thought we overextended Jake on Friday. I thought we overextended Christie on Friday, and I thought they were trying to do that because they wanted to save pitching for Saturday. I get it. I understand the theory behind it. However, you got to know when to say when. When Julian blows it open to 11-6 right there, you feel pretty good. 5-run lead, deep into the game. This is a team that can't hit and have, bad inconsistencies in the pen. You feel pretty good about where you are. At that point, going into the game, I'm not going to say, I expect to beat South Al and in Mobile on a Friday. I'm not going to say that, even though by the numbers, they're Arkansas State. But if you take their, it's like the old Jerry Seinfeld joke, we're rooting for clothes, right? If you take the South Al jersey on and put the Arkansas State jerseys on the South Al players, they're basically the same team. And in some regards, Arkansas State is better offensively. But on Friday, when you have the 5-run lead in the 6th, you think, okay, this is a game you got to shut down. You got to nail this thing down. And we blew it. We blow the game. So everybody can talk about, it's a 4-1 week and we're 18-7. I get all that. But do y'all watch the games? Do y'all watch the games? Do you watch how we blew the game? Do you watch the defensive miscues, the mental mistakes, the walks, the free passes? Do you all watch the games? I know what the results say, and I know what the stats say, but they really don't mean all that much if you didn't watch the game and how it unfolded. I'm going to tell you right now, good teams don't blow games like that. And I'm not saying we're not a good team. Don't get mad at me. People got mad at me on the board. I'm not saying we're not good. I'm saying that we have all the pieces that we need to be good, but we have work to do. You can't blow a game like that on a Friday night against a bad team. Again, remove the South Al shirt off the players, put the Arkansas State shirt on the players. Y'all would all be as mad as I was and saying, we blew it, we blew it. 4-1 is 4-1. It's great. 18-7 is great. 20 before 10. I get all that stuff. You can't blow that game on Friday.
And I think where it hurts us is going to be, again, and I know I'm looking ahead. I'm a fan. I'm not a coach. I'm not a player.
Ode to Jerry.
What happened?
I said ode to Jerry. You're looking ahead.
But this is an RPI killer loss.
That's
and if we're 4-4 in the 7th and we lose by a run, okay. Like I'm not happy about the loss, but I'm like, okay, you know what? It was a tight game. They had great pitching. We struggled at the plate, but okay, that's fine. You were up 11-6 in the 7th and you blow it and you gave up 4 runs in the 8th. That is what's frustrating. Again, we're not frustrating that we went 2 for 3 over the weekend.
Exactly.
I will take that against South Alabama every single year. It's how we lost on that Friday night game. If it were a 1-run game going into the 9th and they score a couple, and okay, I get that. But this is a gimme. You just got to close it out. Everybody's just got to do their job, and we blew it. So that was the frustrating part. And again, it's South Alabama. It's a little more for me, but 2 out of 3 is great. But you were there. You were there to sweep it. It was there for you. They handed it to you, and you let it get away. And I think that for you, I'm not going to speak on your behalf, but for me, that was a frustrating point. Is where if this were Grambling, like you said, if we were playing Grambling in a 3-game series and we drop this first game, which Grambling is equivalent to South Alabama. If you're looking at NCAA stats, we would have all been pissed off. But because it's South Alabama, we're willing to give it a little leeway. I don't think we should. I think we should be pissed off about this loss.
I agree. And, everybody makes Foot actually commented on my personal account at UL Man About Town, and he said, I heard a bunch of people, nobody was talking about the fact that this was a rivalry game. And I understand it's a rivalry game, but you think Heath Hood was watching the brawls in Lafayette 25 years ago? You think Julian Brock? Look, I know that they know, I know that they know all that, but Heath Hood had just signed when we got swept at South Alabama 2 years ago. Heath Hood wants to win because he doesn't like the team on the other side. The rivalry, look, to me, it's at this point, especially with South Alabama, it's way more about the fans than it is about the players on the field. I think, it's a rivalry. Well, it's a rivalry because it's a conference mate, and it's a team that, I'm sure these players hear a lot about from fans and coaches, especially from Bab, guarantee. But Deggs doesn't have any extra animosity towards South Al. He just wants to win because he wants to win. Same with probably the majority of our roster. So I don't really think the whole rivalry thing comes into play when you play a bad team. If anything, I think they relaxed in the seventh and said, we got this in the bag, and then, oh no. And give credit to South Al. I mean, they fought to the end, so I'll give them credit for that. But no, this is not your run-of-the-mill loss on a Friday night. I just don't believe that.
And look, to speak to your point, I agree with you. Their backs are to the wall at this point. They're where we were last year at this time, where it's like we got to start winning games. So credit to them. They didn't give up. And they 4 runs in the 8th, man. I mean, you figure, and then I know you had some questionable, or you questioned maybe how we handled some of the pitching later in the game.
Oh, it's brutal.
I know.
It's brutal, Nick, and I'll go into it when we start talking pitching.
And when you do, that kind of put us in a hole for the rest of the weekend. And thankfully we were able to dig out of it. But my whole thing was, and why I was so pissed off about Friday night, is because you play a doubleheader on Saturday, and if you think winning a series or sweeping a series in conference is difficult, try winning 2 games in one day. That is so difficult. I don't care what team you're playing. If you got to play 2 9-inning games, it is hard to win both games. So you put yourself in a terrible position by not winning on Friday night. And I think for me, look, if we would have won Friday, won the first game Saturday, lost the second game, I'd have been disappointed, but I wouldn't have been as pissed off as I was when a Friday is so key because you got to play back-to-back on Saturday. You got to play 18 innings. That's hard to win too. And thankfully we had the talent and we had we were able to pull it out. But man, that Friday night game was so important. And again, you look at that 8th inning and you just kind of shake your head and go, what the hell happened?
Well, I'm about to tell you. So Jake Hammond got the start for the Cajuns. Our Friday night guy goes 3 2/3, gives up 2 in the first, 1 in the second, 1 in the third, and 1 in the fourth. He just didn't have it. And I mean, sometimes you're just not going to have it. So, there's no knock on Preach. He threw 78 pitches, 5 hits, 6 runs, 5 earned, 2 walks, only 2 strikeouts. I thought it was clear early on that he didn't have it. I remember, I think it was Eric Getty and Blake Marshall the year that we went and got swept. I remember them making comments. One of them said it to me personally, but somebody else said it in the media, that there was something wrong with South Al's mound. When they would come down and land, they were just uncomfortable, and it made them release the ball high. I don't know if that played into it, but that's about as ineffective as we've seen Jake Hammond in a calendar year. So I don't know what happened there. Again, some nights you're just not going to have it, but that was extra weird about how that all went down. Then we got the bats going in the third. We scored 5 to take the lead. South Al comes back with 2 in the fourth. We tie it up in the 5th, and then we bring in Dave Christie. Dave comes in, 3 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, 3 strikeouts. Now, that line doesn't sound all that bad, but it was the 6th inning for me. To me, he was clearly done. He ended up throwing 58 pitches. Not great in 3 innings, but you could just tell that they had figured him out. I don't know if he was tipping. Deg says that a lot, but it looked like they had him down. I mean, they saw the ball coming out of his hand just fine. I thought his fastball got flat later in the outing. You know, what do you say? I think Jake was spent. They rode him too long. I thought David was spent. They rode him too long. And then you bring Blake Marshall in a spot that he has not been in yet this year. And I think that they were going to try to get him to go 7, 8, 9. That's my personal opinion. I don't know that for sure. But he could not find the strike zone. Pitched a third of an inning, 3 walks, walked the bases loaded. And, of course, all of those free base runners came home to score on the double off the wall when Moody came in. I did not like the move to go to Marshall there. I first guessed it. I didn't second guess it. We were talking about it in the group chat. I thought, not Blake. This is not where you bring in the closer right now. Not in this situation. Not with how everything is going. I'm not a psychic, but he walked 3 guys. He just couldn't get out of his own way. Then you bring in Moody, who you used on Wednesday. He goes in and gives up 2 hits, a run, an earned run. I didn't necessarily think he looked all that bad. He was a pitch away from getting out of it a couple of times, but he gave up the big shot that ended up bouncing off the top of the wall and coming back into play, and all those runs scored. And next thing you know, South Al has a 3-run 7th, and the Cajuns were, a 2-run 7th, and then the 4-run scored in the 8th. I apologize, I said that wrong. The 4-run scored in the 8th when Blake Marshall came in and walked everybody. At that point, we felt cooked. At that point, you could kind of tell there was a general wind out of the sails feeling in the team. They really didn't fight in the 9th like you expect the Cajuns to. That was a big lick off of Moody there, and I feel bad for Blake because he's been so lights out for so many appearances to this season. I mean, his ERA is great. His strikeout to walk ratio is great. Everything he's done to this point has been plus, and then you have one of those letdown games.
Yeah, and I think he'll be fine going the rest of the season. But it was just, again, like you said, it was the wind out of our sails, and it almost felt like we just conceded, kind of like South Al did the first game of Saturday, just kind of conceded. But again, those games happen. It's South Al, I get it, or Alabama. I totally get it. But when you're up 6 runs over a bad team, which we've established, South Alabama is a bad team.
Bad.
And no offense to their fans, but you're not very good right now. Not saying you can't go in and win the conference tournament. We were not very good this point last year. You can go and run the table. But the point is, right now, South Alabama is not a great team. If you go up 6 runs in the 7th, you should expect to win when you feel like you are a good team. So regardless of whether it's pitching letting you down, hitting not coming through, you got to find a way to win in that situation. And again, it's not about losing 1 out of 3 games. It was about the way that we lost this game that I think left a nasty taste in our mouth.
And might even made him mad for Saturday morning, so maybe it was a blessing in disguise in a few ways. But just to correct an error that I made, David Christie gave you a good 5 and 6th inning. He gave up the 2 runs in the 7th, and then Marshall came in the 8th. I got an inning head start on that. My apologies. South Alabama threw a guy with 2 last names, Garrig Conrad, which is a pretty sick baseball name, by the way. 2 and 2/3. He gave up 4 hits, 5 runs, 5 earned, walked 3. He did strike out 6 in those 2 2/3. Cajuns got to him. They had to pull him. Matthew Delano, who, by the way, Matthew Delano started liking a bunch of Rage and Review tweets from the night after they won. So shout out to Matt Delano. Maybe he's going to listen to the pod. Matt, you guys are not very good. I just want to let you know. But look, 3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 3 runs, and all 3 were earned, and he walked 4. So 2 strikeouts to his credit. He was effective at times, but the Cajuns' offense is just really in a groove right now. So better luck next time, Matt. Jake Brunning comes in relief of Delano. 1 1/3, 2 hits, 3 runs, and a walk. He did have 3 Ks. Jackson Boyd, an inning, 1 hit, and then Grant Wood, who is still very, very good, gave up nothing. He did walk a guy in a single inning of work. And then we can move on to offense. Ben Robichaux, again, good night, scored 3 runs, had a hit, 2 walks, did strike out twice, which is very uncharacteristic of him. Debo continues to be on fire, 2 hits and 4 at-bats, 4 RBI, scored 2. Carson Rockefeller. I know we're putting some different emphasis this year. Maybe we've been saying it wrong this whole time.
Putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, bro.
Correct. Rock, 5 official at-bats, 2 RBIs, and a hit, did score a run. He struck out 2 to add to that mounting K total. Heath Hood, no hits. Did walk twice, struck out once, did score a run. Julian Brock hits another bomb, 2 RBI, 2 hits, scored a run on his homer, and walked 1 time. And that guy's just, again, in fuego. He's just hitting the ball out of every yard. I mean, the ball he hit to dead center was absurd. Just, I think the exit velo was 108, and it went, oh man, I forgot how far it went. 458? I think that's correct.
Looked like 2 miles.
Oh my God, dude, he's ridiculous. JT got another hit and 4 at-bats, did walk as well. He did strike out 3 times, though, but exceptional sparkling defense yet again. Peyton Lejeune gets in the game. No hits and 1 official at-bat. He struck out in that at-bat, actually. Caleb Stelly pinch hit, single. CJ Willis. Beautiful to see CJ back in the lineup and getting some defensive time at first base. We need CJ to get back to what he was doing early in the season. Got 1 at-bat, no hits, but good to see CJ back. I mean, I think that he's still one of those guys that you think is going to still have a big year. Will Vaillant, again, he's starting to round into shape. I think he's above the Mendoza line now. 1 hit and 4 official at-bats, did score a run, and he walked. Max, another hit on Friday in 3 official at-bats, did score 2 runs. The old Max that we know, scoring runs. And that does it for the offense. At the end of the day, pitching, the Cajun pitching gave up 14 hits. That might be a season high. I know, I think we gave up 16 to Campbell on Saturday. But that's still high for this pitching staff, as much as we kind of complain about the moving pieces and, the free passes and whatnot. I still think that, the numbers, like you mentioned, I think we're 30 in ERA, which is pretty solid, honestly, all things considered. Cajun offense left 9 on base. South Alabama offense left 10 on base. Cajuns got 9 free passes, and South Alabama got 5 base on balls. It was one of those games where you kind of throw out the stats, and towards the end of that game, it was just a dogfight, and credit to South Al. They found a way, They found a way, Nick. But if they score 4 in the 7th and not in the 8th, I think we probably have a little bit more opportunity there to come back, and I guess we did put ourselves in position to maybe try to do something, but look, it just wasn't to be. After that 4-run inning, hard to come back from.
I'm just going to say my dad was a pitcher in the 50s, like 1950s. And my mom watched him play semi-pro ball. And so we talked about the game Saturday. I call her every single day. Mom's listening will love this. I called my mom every single day, and we talked about the game on Friday. And on Saturday morning, we talked about it, and she said, look, it doesn't matter if you can hit the ball. You got to be able to pitch. And she said, I've been watching this game since your daddy was pitching. You got to pitch, and you got to stop him from scoring. So it's so true. Like, it doesn't matter. In the 50s or today, you got to, in the end you can hit the ball, but you got to stop him from scoring. And we just failed to do that. You feel, again, like going into the 8th, 6-run lead, you got it. And then it goes down to a 4-run lead, and you're like, oh, okay. But like you said, I think if we gave up 4 in the 7th, you're feeling a little bit better. But, it is what it is. It's just one of those crazy games. I hate to say this. I hate that saying, but hey, that's baseball.
Oh, no. The dreaded it's baseball. Look, if it comes back to serve a purpose, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, that whole thing. Great. I'm willing to eat that, and I still think it matters how you play. And if you watch the games, you can have an intelligent conversation about how it went down. The result is what it is. I get it, and it's baseball, whatever. That is a flat-out blown game. Like Rice, go back to the Rice example. We're up 5 after 2, and we end up losing the game. They beat us pretty handily on the Sunday. I don't think that's even close to the same thing. I think that you got up early, and you faltered throughout the course of the game. This is not what happened in this game. We were the better team. I mean, really, for 8 innings, in my view, 7.5 innings. And we just let it get away from us. And the problem is that it came from guys that we've been able to rely on. Marshall, Blake. I love Blake. Blake's my guy. You can't walk the bases loaded right there. I mean, that is just the last thing you can do. And I who knows how that plays on the player's psyche. You never want to say, oh, well, they gave up. I don't think they gave up. But, man, that's tough. That's tough to come back from.
Look, we were the better team for 24 innings of this entire weekend.
No
it was like 2 or 3 innings that we kind of, poo-pooed the bed. And it happens. But look, again, not there's no panic. I don't think you're panicking. I don't think I'm panicking.
No.
I don't think anybody's looking too much into this, but you're up by 6 in the 7th. You feel like you're going to pull this out, and you know, you gotta be better than that. Maybe we got too comfortable, like you said, and thought, hey, it's our game. We got it. But L is for learning. Hopefully this was a learning experience.
I think that has a lot to do with it, but of course I'm not panicking. Of course not. The problem is that some of our fans can't just have a conversation about baseball.
Correct.
If you say
then all of a
anything
sudden
negative,
you hate the team, right? You hate the team if you question.
it's like Jared. You know, every time something bad goes, if we talk anything negative, he says, "Is Deggs the guy?" Oh, come on, dude. Is Deggs the guy? Come on. We're talking about in-game baseball. We're talking about moments and they're blips of things that happen during the course of a 9-inning game. And we've all been around baseball long enough to be able to ask that question intelligently. So some of our fans, you cannot talk about it like that. It has to be sunshines and rainbows, unicorns and Lucky Charms, the whole thing. It just has to be, you know. But they've been getting mad at me for 20 years. I don't care. Just talking about baseball. Can we just talk about baseball? Anyway, Cajuns lose 12-11 on Friday to the Jags. We come back, and as Ernie Banks would say, let's play 2. So we get the Jags twice on Saturday. First game at 1 p.m. at Eddie Stanky. Oh, I thought that was a funny name. Eddie Stanky Field. I call it the Stank. Cajuns absolutely go nuts at the plate. Win the game 22-5. This is the game that we talked about where Jackson Nezu moves up to the Saturday role, game 2 role, and he was faced up against Jeremy Lee, who, again, has been a quality arm for South Al for a long time. He's been in the program for a long time. This guy was borderline All-American in his sophomore year, I want to say, and he just was not effective whatsoever. And you don't know what's going on with Jeremy Lee. I think his ERA is like over 6 now. He's 0-4 on the season. Cooper Rawls comes in and gets the save. He was good again, and we'll get more into pitching as we go, but Nick, any overall generalized comments about a 22-5 ass whipping? I guess we went for 2 on the final touchdown.
You called out Jerry, so he's joining us. But before we get to that, no, man. Look, Nezu, I think, again, 120 pitches in 5. I would like to see that get to 6 or 7 for 120 pitches. But he got the job done. He only allowed 3 runs. Not a whole lot of bad to say about this game, man. This is one of those games where you just sit back and enjoy it.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I did. I just sat back and I enjoyed it. I didn't get into the stats of who was hitting what, but damn, Rocco went off. JT went off. I mean, Julian is Julian. What do you say, man? This
was a good old-fashioned college baseball lap dance.
Yeah.
You just sit back, you fold your arms, and you enjoy it. Just have a good time watching. That's it. That's all this was.
And you knew, but you knew that you felt, I mean, at least from my perspective, I felt like 22 runs, and I know there's an old saying, well, you got to save them. Not necessarily save them, but you felt like South Alabama was just conceding and saying, okay, you know, we'll throw trash in the bullpen, whatever, but we got you game 3. And again, this goes back to Friday night where I was worried about Friday night, because if we win Friday and we're up 22-3, then we're kind of relaxing in game 3. Could go either way, but this was 2 must-win games today. To kick it off with a 22, run game, that was a good sign. But again, you felt like, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you felt like game 2 for today or Saturday was going to be a little more tenuous as it went on, and it kind of was. But no.
Yeah, I
mean,
expected a dogfight today. I really did.
What do you say? I mean, there's nothing, you can't say anything about games like this, man.
You certainly cannot. Let's do offense first, because that was the most fun. I mean, really pick a guy. I mean, Ben Robichaux had 3 walks, scored 2 runs, and 1 official at bat. He didn't have any hits, but he was on base all the entire game. Caleb Selly gets in the game, gets a hit and 2 official at bats, had an RBI, which is great to see. Debo, if you guys remember, he got hit in the first inning and was pulled for John Taylor. John Taylor filled in, which, by the way, that's another revelation, Nick, that happened in this game. We know that if something happens to Debo, God forbid, we have a guy that can step in and play a great shortstop defensively and obviously offensively, because all he did was go, 3 for 6, 3 runs scored, 4 RBI, a bomb, a triple. He finished a double short of the cycle. Did strike out once, but I mean, what do you say about John Taylor at this point? To me, the guy's got to be on the field. He has to be in the lineup. He's one of those guys where, look, he's a utility player at this point. Obviously, it's an infield utility guy, but he's got to be on the field. I think that he has earned his keep every time. The more he plays, the better he gets. What do you see out of JT?
100% agree. And look, JT coming in, I have to admit, I was a little bit skeptical because baseball bat bros, like, oh, this
Same.
guy's just going to try to hit it out the park every single at bat. But he has.
But am I wrong on this? Is his defense? There's no way you thought he could play that kind of defense.
I was about to say it. The defense was going to be the next word in my mouth. I had no idea this kid had the glove he has. Holy cow. So you're telling me you got a guy who can hit for power and he can hit. I mean, if he needs to get a single, double, he can do that. Oh, and by the way, he could also play ridiculous defense. And I think JT, who was on the call this weekend, or excuse me, JD Byers was on the call this weekend, was mentioning he had 6 errors on the season. I mean, compare that to the ridiculous plays he's made. Okay, I'll take the 6 errors. If you see the way this guy plays defense, it's insane. I mean, he is a true all-around player. I know, was it you that got in an argument with somebody about whether or not he was Blake Trahan like level? I know there was that conversation going on. I don't like comparing players.
That was Debo. They were saying, so the conversation on the board was that Debo was projecting to be the best shortstop that ever played here.
Regardless, I don't care.
No.
I don't compare players in that way. I just want guys to perform at the best level that they can perform at. And then 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we can look back and say where they are. But right now, I'm just happy for what he's doing and how he's contributing. Because I don't know about you, but I had no idea his defensive skills were what they are. And I was a little apprehensive going into the season, going, this guy's just going to try to mash it every at bat. But holy cow, he is just a true great all-around player so far. So what we've seen this season.
What impresses me, 6 errors doesn't sound right. And look, JD is a pro. I have nothing but respect for JD Byers. He's been on the pod a couple of times. Great dude. 6 errors sounds high to me. Whatever. It may be right. It just sounds high. The thing about JT that impresses me is that his strikeout numbers were high early in the season. He looked bad a couple of times, and he hasn't seen a whole lot of D1 pitching, so you thought that maybe there was a curve that he'd have to overcome. Well, he's done it in about 2 weeks. He's gone from a strikeout victim, strikeout potential, bad at bat, to pretty patient at the plate, making great contact, seeing the ball well. I mean, his on-base percentage just continues to go up. He's hitting the baseball all over. His defense at second base, this is the best defense at second base we've had here under Dags. That is not hyperbole. This guy is making plays in short right field. He's behind the bag, and this is not when we shift. By the way, we haven't been shifting all that much. Have you noticed that? It's like the shift.
Yeah, I think that's a trend because
I think it's because of range. I think we have range now.
That's what I was going to say, but I think that's a trend in college baseball as a whole. You've not seen a whole lot of shift. But again, I think we just have hosses who can play, and that's not required. You got guys who can be all over the field at any point in time. So I agree with you.
I think the shift should be banned, but that's a whole other pod.
Isn't it banned in MLB now?
It should be. It should be. It's ridiculous. Thanks a lot, Madden. Joe Madden, not the other Madden. Look, Joe Madden, coach. He was the manager for the Cubs for a while. He got me a world championship. All love, but I think that the shift is as bad for baseball as the pitch clock. Ridiculous. Again, whole other pod. Anyway, back to JT and the Rougarou boys. Again, he had 3 for 6. We said that. Carson Roccaforte looked like Carson Roccaforte of old. 4 hits and 6 at bats, 3 runs, 2 RBI. He did have a stolen base. Really good. I mean, Carson Rock. It feels like he's kind of starting to turn the corner to get back to his old self. He looks more comfortable, especially this weekend at the plate. Heath Hood walked once, homered once, 2 RBI, a hit in 2 official at-bats, did score a run. Julian Brock, another homer, walked twice because people are sick of pitching to him. 2 more RBI, excuse me, I lost my spot, sorry. 1 hit, 2 RBI, it was the homer and then the 2 walks, my bad. Lee Amity gets in the game, has an RBI, not a hit. It was a sack. Clay Wargo gets an at-bat. Glad to see Clay get some playing time, give Julian a break. Didn't get a hit, but got some defensive time. CJ Willis, Again, 4 at-bats, an RBI, a hit, 2 runs scored, and a walk. Will Veillon, 3 RBI, 2 hits in 3 at-bats, and a walk. He also hit a moonshot. We hit 5 home runs in this game. Luke Uhas, 1 official at-bat, 2 RBIs, a hit, and a base on ball. So
I think we had 6 home runs in this game.
Let's
dude.
see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5
No,
homers.
According to the official stats, Taylor, Hood, Brock, Veillon, Zamble, Mason. 6. That's 6, right?
Mason who?
I have no idea what that means.
Mason. It's a typo. Mason Zambo.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Zambo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after Zambo is Mason's. I mean, I'm sorry. After Luke,
sorry. You're right.
Mason Zambo, who had a great day at the plate, and he had kind of been struggling a little bit. 5 at bats, 3 RBI, 2 hits, 2 runs, a homer, a walk, and it's fun to hit when the ball is getting blown out. Especially at Stanky because it's a hitter's ballpark already. When you get the wind blowing out, dude, the ball's gonna jump. So, great for Mason. Great for all the home run hitters to get the ball out. Max at 3 at bats, he did nothing. Connor Higgs, at bat, run scored, and a hit. Peyton Lejeune, run scored and 2 at bats, no hits, no walks, nothing like that. And that is your offense. Any quick takeaways from the offense in game 1 on Saturday, and then we'll look at pitching.
Yeah, the only thing I think I said going into this this game was, oh crap, the wind's blowing out. We're gonna try to mash it, and a repeat of McNeese where we just try to mash the ball. That being said, obviously we were successful in mashing the ball, so I'm not hating on it. But look, it was, again, when you score 22 runs, not a whole lot of bad to say about it. But
Rougarou Ball.
But you know what's funny is that even though we were up by, God, I don't even know how much we were up by. I mean, it wasn't 22. It might have been 18 to like 3. They came back and scored 2 runs, and I'm like, oh crap, here we go again. Another Friday night thing, because as like I had PTSD from Friday night where no lead was safe. But just all in all, good to see the guys not try to force things, mash the ball. Again, you can't say a whole lot of bad.
22 runs is quite the
ridiculous.
Feat. By the way, that's the most runs the Cajuns have ever scored in Mobile, Alabama at Stanky Field.
By the way, if you look at the contenders in the Sun Belt so far this season, you're talking about Coastal, you're talking about ODU. They're scoring runs as well.
Oh,
so look, there are 4 or 5 teams, I think, and there was an article in one of the D1 baseball, I don't know if it was D1 baseball, but one of the Division I baseball reporters came out and said, is the Sun Belt Conference a 5-bid league? Yes. And
Absolutely.
Here's why.
Absolutely.
This is what I'm talking about, man. We're positioning ourselves with the way that we're playing baseball across the league to be a 5-bid league. So, again, every single win matters for every team in this league, but it is so great to know that even though you drop one in South Alabama, the committee may look at this and say, it's a Sun Belt, kind of like it's the SEC. We're starting to get in that conversation, and that's refreshing and good to see.
Agree. And look, South Alabama has a knack for going on late season runs. I don't think they have the horses for that this year, but if they do, that RPI will creep up and it'll help our RPI. So all is not lost. On the mound, Jackson Nizu, 5 2/3, 6 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned. He got tagged for a bomb. He did walk 2 guys. He had 5 Ks and hit 2 guys, which got him in a little bit of trouble. All in all, though, give me 3 earned runs on a Saturday start. This offense is not going to let you down more often than not. The only thing that I would say about Jackson, not economical at all, 123 pitches and 5 2/3. We got to figure out a way to get that down. His masterpiece last week, where he was named Sun Belt and National Pitcher of the Week, 108 pitches in 8 innings. Or no, 7 innings. 108 pitches in 7 innings. That we got to see the pitch count get down. Agree?
100%. Jerry, what you think? Welcome, buddy.
Good
hey,
to see you, Jerry. How are things?
I'm a little late to the party. What did I miss? I know we took 2 out of 3 against South Al. We went 4-1 on the week. What other stuff did we talk about tonight? What did I miss?
Most
Everything
of the weekend.
Else.
I'm actually I'm about to wrap up pitching for Saturday, where we only used 2 pitchers, which was a great thing because obviously in a twofer situation, you want to save as much pitching as you can. What the great thing was, basically we had the entire pen at our disposal on Saturday afternoon for game 3, which, by the way, that first game lasted 3.5 hours. I mean, come on, that's too long, guys. We got household stuff to get to.
Before you go, Jerry, the most important thing about a 2-pitcher game on the game 1 is the way we pitched Friday night. We needed that, because if you start getting into 3, 4, 5 guys having to come in and pitch on game 1, then it's going to be a little bit iffy in that second game of a doubleheader. So really,
absolutely.
Look, Nezu, I get it. We wanted him to pitch. I mean, 120 should have been like 7 innings, but it didn't. Cooper came in. He did what he had to do to get the win, and then we were able to move into game 2. So overall, happy, obviously, with the outcome. We pitched 200 pitches. They pitched 227, and they pitched like 8 guys. So I'm okay with that.
I'm good with it. Whatever it takes to get that done. The other pitcher that we used was Cooper Rawls. Once again, he's been one of your go-to guys for the majority of this young season so far. Coop goes 3 1/3. He does give up 2 hits and 2 earned runs. He walked 3 guys, and that's what happened. I mean, he got himself in trouble with the walks. If to this point, I'm going to see what opponents are hitting off of him. It's not good. I mean, it's like in the 160s somewhere, even with the couple hits that he gave up in his outing on Saturday. But he walked 3 guys, and you all know, we've all watched it. Free passes, especially with conference mates, they're going to score runs. So Coop comes in and saves the pin, which is the most important thing to me. Like Nick said, 2 pitchers on the front end of a twofer. The most important thing is just getting through it. Coop comes in, he goes to 3 1/3. He gives up a homer. He throws a wild pitch. He had a hit by pitch. To me, he threw 76 pitches. To me, if you're going to have a stinker, that was the day to do it. So we got that. We got that out of the tank for Coop. He's ready to go. He's ready to rock and roll at that 1.15 ERA clip where guys are hitting like 150 off of him. That's fine. Y'all both know this. The mission changes when you're up 1 million to nothing or 1 million to 3, whatever. His mission was to go in there, save pitching, throw strikes. Okay, and he did have a little bit of a rough go of it. But again, if you're gonna have a stinker, that is the time to do it. So whatever. Cooper did his job. He got through it. Cajuns win 22-5 in game 1 of the twofer on Saturday. Jerry, overall comments before we get to the Sunday or game 3 tilt between the Jags and the Cajuns.
Well, I heard you guys talk a little bit about the first game. I don't want to go too far back, but I know we blew the 5-run lead. I know it was a tough loss. I think what was concerning about going into Saturday was the fact that we had used up a good bit of our bullpen, the best part of our bullpen. I mean, how often do you see Blake Marshall go out there and have to get pulled? That was something that that we haven't seen all season. And really, it was just a bad night for the pitchers. But I think in game 2, the way we responded was huge. And to your point about Jackson, I wish Jackson pitched another great game. I would like to see his pitch count get down as well, because I think he went through 80 pitches through 4 innings. When you start playing better hitting teams, and by the way, Nick, I like the compliment you made earlier in the episode when I was listening about looking ahead. Well, I'm going to look ahead. When you start playing better hitting teams and the bullpen struggles like they did Friday night and a little bit of yesterday, that's dangerous. And you can't beat teams by out hitting them every game. I mean, that's one thing I've learned over this weekend. We scored 43 runs, I believe, in this 3-game span, and yet we went 2-1. And I'm not trying to be negative Nancy here. I mean, we took 2 out of 3, but when you score 43 runs in a weekend, you're expected to go 3-0. So overall, game 2, I thought we, as Robe would say, minimized the damage on pitching, because I think they did just enough. I mean, they gave up 5 runs, but we scored 22. At that point, when you're able to score run after run after run, and Calvi's coming out every third of an inning to change his pitchers, by then you pretty much have them. At that point, you're just trying to save up depth for game 3. And I think that's what we did in game 2, and that was very helpful. I think Deggs and Tibb were at the point where they're like, look, man, we'll give up a few runs at the end of the game, but we're holding off our depth, because I think I was more surprised at how many pitchers South Alabama used in game 2. They used probably 8 guys, I believe. 8 or 9 guys.
Well, they started throwing guys that have not seen action at all.
Yeah,
I mean, these are
so-
young freshmen and guys that have not thrown a pitch. in
Yeah, they
D1.
conceded. They were done.
I mean, right. So they were throwing so many arms to where I'm like, my dad and I are watching the game and we're like, are they going to have anybody left for game 3? I mean, I know they're saving some guys, but at the same time, you're using that many guys even when you're down by 15 runs. So that was the good thing. That was the good part on our side is we minimized the amount of pitchers we had to use for game 2, which was very helpful going into game 3.
Agree. Pitching staff didn't get a whole ton of credit because everybody was worried about the balls flying out of the stanky. But you got to give them credit for that. You got to give them credit. 56 runs this week, boys. I'm sorry, 58. Add the 2 for Southeastern. We scored 58 runs this weekend. I mean, this week. This whole week, 58.
Crazy.
I mean, that's
You divide that by 5. That's that's 11 and 12 runs a game in 5 games.
But
I mean,
think about, again, back
that's
to
unbelievable.
God bless Rowe, but think back to post 14 where we were struggling to score 2 or 3 runs a game, but our pitching kept us in it. So it didn't matter if we scored 2, we were holding them to 1. So it's taking a little bit of adjustment for me as a fan to realize and understand that Rowe was an anomaly when it came to pitchers. Guys from all over the country were targeting UL as a pitching destination for them because of Rowe's pitching skills and as a coach. And God bless Tibb, he's a great pitching coach, but there are very few coaches in the country who will ever be what Rowe was. So we kind of have to take a little bit. I think we've taken a little bit for granted, really, as an athletic, over the past couple of years. Athletics has been obnoxious in the SBC, but really, when it comes to pitching and hitting, you've got a hitting coach in Deggs is the opposite of what Rowe was. It's a little bit of an adjustment because we
Let's
still
just be blunt.
expect. Yeah,
it drives me nuts.
It drives us nuts because we expect to hold teams to 5 runs and score 40, and that's just not reality. You're going to recruit great hitters and good pitchers, or you're going to recruit great pitchers and good hitters. It's
true.
all about the philosophy, right?
And not to have recency bias, that we've had great pitchers come through this program for 30 years.
I mean, look at Aaron Getty.
Yeah, exactly.
Bo Bonds. I mean, perfect example.
But
I mean, we're
the
spoiled.
talent that we
Let's
had
be honest.
from 12 to 17 through this
Obnoxious.
program, unmatched. Really,
Well, I
just
mean-
really good.
2016, our hitting was subpar. It was the pitching that allowed us to host a regional. 2015,
Those games piss me off so bad because it's like you just need one hit. You just need one run.
you talk about 2015. What carried us? You had a weekend rotation full of true freshmen that carried us to a super regional. I mean, it took in the supers. It took a true freshman in Gunnar Leger to give up a 2-run base hit RBI to Alex Bregman to pull him out in the 7th. I mean, how many freshmen have that type of opportunity and are able to get a standing ovation from that place of all places as a true freshman coming out in the super regional when the whole country's watching you? That's what we're used to. And so, I know y'all were talking a little bit about should we panic? I know we're 18-7, Josh, like you said about pitching, but at the same time, the real question should be, what's our goal? If we look at our pitching staff right now and we say, okay, can we win a regional with the way we're pitching right now? That's kind of the standards we've always had, is to get to Omaha, at least make a super regional or regional run and get to Omaha. Can we do that with the current pitching staff we have now? And based on what I saw this weekend, I hate to say it, but the answer is no. You're not going to be able to out hit teams. I mean,
And
you
that's
look
a
at some of your-
snapshot. That's a snapshot.
But
That
sure.
is not an indictment on their
No.
ability.
But Jared, look at
No,
where
you
we
see,
are
we're
this
halfway
year.
through we're not even halfway through the season yet.
I
I mean,
know.
we got a lot of time to improve, but based on what we're seeing now, I would hope that, and I would expect pitching to get better. I mean, you look at your great, you look at a Tennessee team last year that can mash. They lost on pitching. That's why we're so adamant on making sure our pitching continues to improve and try to get better, because if you're trying to reach the ultimate goal of what we're trying to reach as a team and as a program, right now, from what I'm seeing, you're not going to get to that ultimate goal by the way we're pitching. I mean, it just needs to get better, but luckily we're not halfway through the season, and I do expect this pitching to get better. I mean, we do have the arms to do that.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think we are where we need to be right now, pitching wise.
To make the leap.
To make the leap. Now,
Yes.
look, we got
I'll
some
agree with
improvement
that.
to do, but look, we are so far ahead of where we were last year, pitching and hitting wise, that
Oh,
right
yeah.
now, look at our record.
Sure.
I'm sitting back and enjoying it and sitting in the sun. And so no, there is no panic and there's no concern about us getting to where we need to be. I think we are right now way ahead of where I thought we would be this season. No concern on my end. I think our pitching is fine. I think we have a little bit of a hiccup that we got to figure out. But when you look again as a whole, holistically, where we were last year versus where we were this year versus where we have been in the past couple of seasons, I am counting my blessings and happy as hell as where we are.
Well, here's the reality. The schedule gets harder. The second half of the year is pretty tough as opposed to the first 25 games we've played. Now we're playing games on the road. Now we're playing some tough midweek competition. Now we're going to be playing some teams that can hit. Now we're going to be playing some teams that are hitting their stride right now. So this second half of the year, if you can have a similar record to what we had these first 25 games at 18-7, we're riding high going into the conference tournament. Now, there's a lot of baseball left to be played, but also too, what I'm optimistic about with our pitching staff is once they start playing the Coastal Carolinas, the Texas States, the Southern Misses, the Louisiana Techs, the school across the basin, you can only get better from there with that type of experience. It's not going to be playing against Rice. You're not going to be playing against High Point. You're not going to be playing a midweek game against Grambling. And no disrespect to those teams, but the teams that are coming up, even App State next weekend, they're good hitting teams. You're going to get some good experience there. So I'm not worried yet. Like I said, from what I'm seeing now, they do need to get better, but they're going to have a golden opportunity in the next few weeks to play some really good competition to only get better naturally with experience.
Agree. And the question comes down to when you say something is good or a team is good, what does that mean to you? And what does that mean to the person that you're talking to? We know what good looks like because we've seen really good baseball around here for a very long time. When I say something's good, it means I'm challenging for a conference title and I'm looking to host a regional. That's what I mean when I say we have work to do in order to be a good ball club. I don't think we're dog meat, but we have work to do. Everybody inside that building is going to agree with that statement.
And I agree with you. But let's look at our schedule conference-wise. Who scares you? Troy? Not. They did at the beginning of the season. Now they're coming back to reality. So not terrified of Troy. Could we lose 2 out of 3? Yes. But I expect to win that series. JMU? Don't know a whole lot about them, but I'm not scared
It's on
of
the road.
them. Right now.
You got to
now
go
again,
there.
it's on the road.
Part. Yeah.
Coastal, they can score.
They're good.
But so can we. Okay? So the question is going to be, whose bullpen is going to hold up? Is it going to be Coastal or is it going to be us? And then you get into Southern
Coastal,
Miss.
So.
Okay, then you got ULM moving on. Then you got Texas State, which was exposed by Southern Miss this weekend.
Not good. They've taken a big step back.
And then you got Southern Miss, which I am not sold on. Now, can they hit? Yes. Can they pitch? To be seen.
They're kind of like us right now, yeah.
There is nobody that scares me. Now, again, that does not mean we cannot lose a series the rest of the season. I expect us to lose one series this season. But do we have the ability to win every single conference series this season? The answer is yes. We should have won the series against Southern Miss, which to me, they were better than Texas State, but whatever. We should have beat Southern Miss last season. And we didn't. We
got hosed on a call. We got hosed on a call in the 7th inning on a ball.
Correct.
Off the wall.
And we are not what we were last season. We are a lot better than we were
they're
at
not
that
either.
point. So
again, we got swept in 2 conference series last year. Texas State and Troy. I mean,
I don't expect a terrible start.
I don't expect us to get swept this year by any conference team.
I'll tell you what,
it could happen, but I just don't see it.
Let's expand this conversation when we do the league update. Let's put a bow on the series.
We're getting off topic. Sorry.
No, that's all right. It happens.
Yeah.
So in game 2 at the Stank on Saturday, Cajuns come out victorious 10-6. Louisiana put runs on the board, 3 in the first, 1 in the third, 2 in the fifth, 1 in the sixth, 3 in the eighth. Balanced offensive attack yet again. We saw JT Etheridge get the win. Ben Tate gets the save, and I thought he looked really good. The pride of Sunset, Louisiana, Mr. Ben Tate. We'd all been asking, where's Ben Tate? We want to see some Ben Tate. Finally, you saw him close that game out Saturday. Maybe that was the plan for him to try to see if he could fit in that closer role with Blake Marshall kind of on the rocks. And you got to remember that Blake hasn't been healthy for 2 years. You got to wonder if maybe something's going on there. That's just something to look out for. Sam Hill gets the start. Carson Fluno came in relief for him. JT Etheridge, like I mentioned, who got the win, came in relief of Carson Fluno, and then, of course, Ben Tate. I'll get the numbers on Sam and everybody else, but overall observations of pitching. Jerry, you go first.
I thought that was the game they needed after Friday night because if you notice, South Alabama had a few opportunities to have some go ahead runs and take the lead and come back, and they had some guys left on base, and our pitcher they pulled through and they stepped in and got it done. So that's a type of game that shows me that they can respond, because unlike Friday night, it was the opposite, right? South Alabama got the timely hit. They got the go-ahead runs. They were able to make comebacks. They were able to rally. Whereas that game 2 of Saturday night, that same opportunity applied and they didn't. And our pitching staff, they were able to get the key outs. Our fielding did a good job of kind of holding their runners and leaving them in scoring position. So I thought that was huge. That was a big step forward for our pitching staff to do what they did in that game, because I saw a lot of deja vu from what we saw Friday night. And this time the pitching staff stepped up and said, no way, not going to happen twice in one weekend. So kudos to the pitching staff. Kudos to those guys stepping in, getting it done. When you're able to do something like that, even if South Alabama is not the South Alabama we're used to, still doing it at their place on the road and stepping in, I mean, that is exactly what that pitching staff needed going into this 5 or 6 day break.
And Nick,
Yeah, agreed.
we talked about the ceiling for Sam Hill, and we talked about all of the signals that the coaching staff were sending us as fans. They want to see something out of Sam. They think he's the guy. 2 1/3, 4 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned, 2 walks, 4 Ks, gave up a double, a homer, 3 wild pitches in 57 chances. A little bit lackluster. He was on a projection that looked like he could slide into that Sunday role or game 3 role. I think that maybe we took a step back today with Sam.
No, I agree. And not his best performance, but still did what we had to do to win the game, which is obviously the goal. But no, I expected a little bit more. I thought he was a little more impressive. When was his last start? Was it Mississippi State?
Well, he started against Southeastern on Wednesday.
Yeah. You're right. So yeah, I think he still has some growing to do. I think he can still fit into that starting role on a Sunday. But again, what I like about the Degs teams is that every position is up for competition. And if you're not at your best, somebody else who is will take your spot. So it's Sam's spot to lose right now. That is his role. And if he can't consistently be the guy that we need on Sundays, we got a guy who's pitching midweek who can. So that is what I like to see about Degs, or what I have liked to have seen already and continue to see, is that every role is up for grabs. Perform your best, do your best, see where it leads us. But I need to see a little bit more consistency from him. But again, all in all, we got where we needed to be. Not disappointed by the result, obviously.
Yeah, my issue is I just don't want to see this coaching staff try to shove another square peg in a round hole. We've done that way too much with pitching, and drives me nuts. The only thing is, recognize that, yes, the guy has a high ceiling, but this was a step back. Maybe that's not the role right now. Maybe Tommy Ray deserves another opportunity. Hell, maybe Cooper Rawls deserves to get a start on a Sunday. I mean, I think the guy is earned. We know he can start. We know he can go long innings. We know he's, in my view, if you look at his pitch totals, he's more economical than a lot of guys on the staff. So maybe Cooper's your answer on Sunday. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. And then you got Carson Fluno that comes in, and another uncharacteristically poor performance. Inning and 2/3, gave up 4 hits, 2 earned runs, walked a guy, gave up a homer. Again, I know the wind was blowing out a little bit less in the afternoon, but still, you got an offensive club that you don't think has a whole. Their slug is down, their batting average as a team is down. You don't think this team is going to slap it around the park, and you get, Sam goes in there and does what he does, and then you got Carson Fluno, in my view, one of the most reliable guys you've had to this point in the season, throws 41 pitches and really can't get out of his own way. His ERA is up to 3.6 now. He goes in at 2.7. Not great, but I don't know. Was Carson just off? I mean, it seems like a lot of guys that we've been relying on a lot were just off.
But this was a road, a weekend series in conference, different environment. and they didn't have fans in the stands, so I won't say
Which
that
was weird.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not like it was a packed house and there was a lot of pressure. I agree with everything you said. It was this whole this whole series was weird. It was not typical of a UL South Alabama series. So look, hopefully they got that out of their system. We're gonna obviously be on the road in conference going forward. Got to see some consistency across the board in that Sunday spot. I don't know. I'm kind of lost for words because I expected more. I expected Sam to come in and have a solid start. I expected the bullpen behind him because you only used 2 pitchers in that middle game. Look, I was worried coming in on Saturday because I was like, oh crap, we've used our best pitchers on Friday and we lost a game, and now we're in a tough spot. But after only using 2 pitchers in that Saturday first game, I figured, hey, we're in a good position. We got this. So looking for a little more from Sam. Like you said, Fluno. It was just uncharacteristic. It was just weird.
I agree. Jerry, I'll give you the last word on pitching. JT Etheridge comes in, not effective. He's your prototypical contact pitcher. I know that there's a role for him. I have no ill will towards the guy. I just don't think that is the role for him right there. Again, he's not a setup guy. And at that point in the game, you're not looking for a setup guy. But, in theory, if you're going to bring Ben Tate in to finish that game, he's the pseudo setup. I mean, ideally, I think you want to bring in Ben Tate in the 8th. So, I mean, essentially, he serves as a setup there. But anyway, not effective. They bring in Tate. He does the job. He goes 3 1/3, gives up only 1 hit. He did walk 3 guys, which, God, we got to stop walking guys. He struck out 4. He had a wild pitch, which we threw way too many of those this weekend. Hit a guy. Again, South Alabama's going to do that to you. But at the end of the day, he got the outs he needed to get. 0 earned runs. That's the number one important thing. Cajuns win 10-6 in large part because Ben Tate was able to come in and slam the door.
That's the thing, though. I mean, I like, unless you have massive control over your pitches, I'm not a big fan of like just throwing all of these different pitches that turn into balls that go into the dirt, and that's what we've been doing over the last few weeks, and we've been giving away free bases. I'd rather throw strikes and make them swing. And unless you play a team that's playing gorilla ball, I mean, at this point, you kind of set up a situation like you saw the other night or Friday night where you walk too many guys and you have one guy that's going to hit them in anyway. So I'd rather just at least set up an attempt to get these guys, throw strikes and get these guys out, even if it's a deep out or a hard out, rather than just walking them. Because what happens is that creates momentum for them. I mean, that's what did us in Friday night. You walk a guy, one guy gets on base. Before you know it, you walk another guy. There's no outs. Now you have a pitcher that's inexperienced, and whether it gets to his head or he's not throwing it well, and you get what you got. So I'm just one of those fans, man. Just throw strikes and make them swing. I don't know, unless you have massive control. Again, unless we have a Gunnar Leger who can locate his changeup. I don't really like the whole, throw in the dirt and all that other fancy stuff to where you're just wasting pitches and you're wearing yourself out.
And I'm going to echo that, Jerry, in the 9th when you're up 10-6 and then you get 2 outs, 2 quick outs. We're good. And then you got a single and I think 2 walks. You load the bases, right? And now you were talking about momentum. Now you're giving a team that is out of it some momentum. And look at what they did Friday. So they're remembering what they did Friday in the 9th inning. And now you're giving them a shot.
They believe. You're giving them belief.
And one swing of the bat.
Right.
One swing of the bat is all it took for that game to be tied and us to possibly lose that series. That's why you can't. That's why, to me, that's where the walks haunt you, because now you're giving a team hope that was pretty much left for dead. We can't be I think wasn't it Tony that used to say we can't be a charity on the mound. We can't be a charity and just give away. I mean, that's where you have an inexperienced bullpen that's still trying to find their identity. That's an opportunity for them to shut the door, which Ben did. That was great, but we need more of our guys to do that.
It was rough at times, but he did shut the door. Let me stand up for the pitchers for just a second. Everybody goes in with a game plan. Everybody throws bullpens a certain way. Everybody has a plan going into their outing. Now, again, when you get a lead like that, it's going to change. You're not throwing to the black anymore. You're not throwing to angles. You're trying to get guys out by getting contact more often than not, or at least that's the way we used to do it. Maybe this coaching staff is a little bit different. But I'll say, mentally, it is difficult to go from throw to the black, throw to angles, pitch your colors. You guys know the color system. Hit your wires. It's sometimes difficult for guys to go from that to just throw strikes, just pump strikes. And as fans, you always hear the drunk guy in the stands, oh, just throw strikes. Well, it's like, owning a business and you can't keep good employees. Just hire good people. Well, it's not that damn easy. Sometimes in a pressure situation, when you have to adjust on the fly and you have to make good pitches but not serve up meatballs to guys that are hitting the ball out of a park that the wind's blowing out of in a hitter's park at Stanky, it's not as easy as we make it sound. But to your point, I think the larger view of it is don't give them hope. Nail the door shut, and you're 100% right on that. I think that the majority of our guys are still growing up in that regard. That's the pitchability that we talk about, that Robe used to always talk about, pitchability. You can't just have a bunch of throwers. You need pitchers, and pitchers know how to pitch. Throwers just go up there and throw the ball. So I just wanted to add a little bit of context to Jerry's comment on that. You can finish the thought there, Jerry.
No, you did it for me. Good job. Sounded good.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man.
Very good.
Jerry's so nice.
I try.
Offensively, the Cajuns get it started with a bang. Julian, again, in fuego, hits the piss missile to dead center field for a 3-run lead. That's a great way to start it. You think, you never know what's going to happen. You score 22 in game 1 on Saturday morning. You don't know how they're going to come out. Are they flat? Did we score too many runs? Hat tip to foot? Do we empty the tank? You never know. And Julian answered that question in the very first inning. Hits an absolute tank to center. I felt good at that point. I knew that we were going to see some arms. Again, Sam Hill. Our play-by-play guy says that Sam Hill is he's obviously projecting and all this stuff. Here's the thing. With young pitchers, you never know. You never know how they're going to respond to different roles. So I felt good about having a 3-run lead going into the bottom of the first. South Alabama, just like they did all weekend long, with the exception of Saturday, they responded. They scored a run in the bottom of the first. Cajuns come back in the third, put 1. South Al scores 2. Cajuns score 2 in the 5th. South Al puts a 3 spot. Cajuns did come back and strike for a run in the 6th, and at that point, we shut them down in the bottom of the 6th, and that's where we truly grabbed the momentum and never looked back. And then we hung a crooked number in the 8th, and then Ben Tate did the rest. Offensively, Ben Robichaux, only 1 walk and 4 at-bats, no hits, nothing else. Didn't score a run, which is obviously odd for him. Luke Uhas got in the game with a bat, and at-bat did nothing. Debo, a hit, 2 runs. Great to see him back in the lineup after that little scare there with the hit by pitch earlier in the day. In 4 at-bats, did have a walk. He had 2 stolen bases, as did Rock. He had 2 stolen bases too. 2 hits and 5 official at-bats, scored 2 runs, had an RBI and a double. Heath Hood continues to hit the baseball. 3 official at-bats. He walked 1, stole 2 bases, 3 runs scored, a hit, and an RBI. Julian Brock, as we mentioned, completely on a heater, hits a bomb to center. He walked. He had another hit outside of the homer, scored 3 runs, and ended the game with 4 RBI. JT, 2 official at-bats, had an RBI, 2 base on balls. Played great defense yet again. I mean, how many great plays is this guy going to make? You can put him at second. You can put him at third. You can do whatever you need to do with him. Shortstop, obviously, he played for Debo. I mean, the guy is just one of those. You have to have those glue kids on the team, but he is producing like an everyday starter. I got to continue to see JT. Will Veillon gets another hit. I think he's got a 4-game hitting streak at this point. 2 RBI, had a double, and 4 official at-bats. Mason Zambo gets in the game. I like his defense at first base, by the way. We don't talk about it enough. He got a hit in 5 official at-bats, did steal a base. CJ Willis, once again, gets to start 3 at-bats, didn't do anything. He did walk twice, but nothing else to write home about. And that's the offense for the Cajuns. And I don't think we need to go over South Alabama because, they're South Alabama, and I don't like talking about them more than I have to. But the Cajun offense continues to roll. Double digits again. 4 and 5 games of scoring 10-plus runs. Again, like we mentioned, 58 runs this week. What do you say? I mean, at this point, I like where we are. 18-7, 5-1 in conference. I think we've played the 2 worst teams in our conference. So I'm not going to get giddy about standings and all that stuff. We're going to learn a lot more about our program going forward. Next weekend should be very interesting. But we don't have a midweek game this week, right, Jerry? I think we're off through the week, so we're going to rest. We're going to get our things together. We're going to rest Debo's hand. We're going to get the pitchers back in a rotation. Hopefully we can find some consistency and some routine. And if we don't, then we'll just figure it out. But hopefully the signs of things to come, we look like we're rolling offensively. And I just I think that's a very important thing at this point in the season. 18-7.
I like the fact that this break comes now because you've played back-to-back 5-week games or five game weeks. And that, I mean, that wears on you, especially you're barely halfway through the season. I mean, we're almost at 20. I mean, we're at 25 games. I think 28's the halfway mark. So, I mean, that's a lot. We've played a lot of baseball in a short amount of time, and we're 8-2 through the last 2 weeks. Even though it would have been nice to be 10-0 or 9-1 based off of Friday night, you're still 8-2. That's a good run. So, I think going into this week, it's good because, like you said, guys like Debo can rest. The players can have some good practices. Maybe one of those what do you call them? The in-game situational practices that they have, and just kind of keep their.
I guarantee you they'll play a bunch of inter squads this week.
Yeah, some inter squads, keep the blood flowing, keep their muscles loose, but at the same time, just kind of be more relaxed going into Friday night. Plus, they come back home. So it's going to be a fun home series against an App State team where you really don't know what to expect from App State. One day they look like a regional team. The next day they're terrible. You just don't know what you're going to get with them, but that's dangerous. That's dangerous. So I think that's a good time to get that 6-day break. And I know I think the team came back early this morning. So look, we got swept at South Al 2 years ago. I mean, after that crazy weekend series in 2021, where it kept raining, and you played a doubleheader, I think on a Monday, and you ended up going 0-for-3. So it was nice to go over there and get the series win. But
you know what? I just remembered they didn't win the Gainesville Regional, but they beat the brakes off of Florida and made it to the final.
They eliminated
That's
them.
what it was.
Yeah, they eliminated them, and I think they lost to, was it Hawaii? Maybe. Was it? No, not Hawaii.
Nah, it wasn't Hawaii. But the team that they lost to won their Super Regional and went to Omaha.
They're from the American Conference. Never mind. I think they were from the American, if I'm not mistaken. I'm drawing
anyway,
a blank.
look, I'm happy to be coming back to the Teague. We're 15-3 at home, and good teams win their games at home. Nick,
Sure.
last thoughts, and then we'll take a trip around the league.
All I got to say is, hey, 4-1. I am, or excuse me, yeah, 4-1 this week. I'm good with it. Should have been 5-0, but you're not going to sweep every series. The goal is to win every series, and I think going into next weekend, we have a good shot at winning 3 in a row. But it's going to be a challenge. Look, App State won the series against Georgia State, and Georgia State, despite their little league home field that they have, swept Troy at home, and then went on and lost 2 out of 3 to App State. So it's going to be a challenge. App State can score. We just got to put it all together. But overall, happy with the way the week has turned out.
Speaking of Georgia State and their Little League park, Georgia State at one point had a top 25 RPI last year, and it looked like they were headed in the right direction. And then they just absolutely fell off a cliff. They have started this season much like they ended last year. Troy did go over there and get swept, but they came back home and they had ULM. So just what the doctor ordered, Troy sweeps ULM 7-5 Friday, 7-5 Saturday in a doubleheader, 4-3 in game 2 on Saturday. So Monroe not putting up much of a fight as per usual.
Oh, they did put up a fight. Can we talk about that?
Oh, yes, we can. Go ahead. I know you wanted to mention it. So, yeah, I mean, especially because it involves Chipper. I mean, that's just
it was a weird situation. So, former UL pitcher Chipper Menard got the start for ULM in game 1 on Saturday because they had a doubleheader situation, I believe, as well. And they were I don't know what happened. I think they were up 3-0, and then Troy came out and hit a homer, I think is what happened. And for some reason, and the guy didn't showboat, the guy didn't do anything crazy. He just hit a homer, and the first pitch to the next batter was behind the batter. So the third base Troy coach got pissed off. He gets tossed. So then the ULM coach comes out, and then all of a sudden he's having the conversation with the umpires, and he gets tossed, and then Chipper gets tossed. So there was no, like, it wasn't an actual fight like Southern Miss, which we'll talk about later. But interestingly enough, for some reason, Chipper thought it would be a good idea to pitch behind the next batter for no reason. Guy didn't showboat. Guy didn't take his time around the bases. He just hit a home run, went all the way around, pitched behind the next guy, and got tossed. So that's the story from that game.
Has there ever been a more infuriating pitcher than Chipper Menard in this program? One night he looks like an All-American. Next night, cannot find the strike zone. And I mean, miss badly over and over and over. I'm glad he still found a place to pitch.
But that's what was like weird. It was like this. He was, I mean, for all, he gave up 2 runs, right, in 3 innings. I mean, he wasn't having a terrible outing. He gave up a homer. Like, it happens. And the dude, for some reason, decided to take it upon himself to throw behind a hitter. I don't get it. I don't get it.
That's wild. Well, Texas State took a trip over to COVID Carolina, and Texas State is such a weird team. They have a couple of nice wins. They swept Northwestern, that Northwestern, not Louisiana Northwestern, or any of the other small schools called Northwestern. They have a nice win over Grand Canyon, who's a top 25 program, really good program, good baseball program. They have a win over TCU in the midweek, and then they took the series from Southern Miss 2 out of 3. And that was at the Pete. Oh, no, excuse me. That was at Texas State. Then they go to COVID Carolina, like I mentioned, and get absolutely dominated Friday and Saturday morning. They lose 19-0 on Friday. 19-0. And then come back Saturday morning and lose 13-6. At one point, that game was 13-1. So Texas State scored some runs late in that game, but 13-6 in game 1. And Coastal comes from behind and wins the game to salvage in the they had a doubleheader as well. So the Saturday afternoon tilt, Coastal comes back to win. I'm sorry, Texas State came back to win 10-8, but Coastal led throughout that game. It was a little bit nip and tuck later, but Texas State does come back to get a salvage victory. Texas State, I can't figure out. They can pitch, but they're nothing like they were last year.
I will tell you, I figured it out. If they're not playing at their home field, they can't. They cannot. Because let's talk about Grand Canyon. Yeah, they won a game. They lost 2 because they were on the road.
That's right.
So they can play. They will play tough at home. They're really good at Texas State. Get them on the road. Get them on a neutral field. We saw it in the conference tournament last year. They're not nearly as good. I don't know what it is.
I thought they were overrated last year too.
Well,
they
it's
know
their
where
ballpark.
they know. Yeah, it's the ballpark. They know where the ball carries. They know how to hit. I mean, they just know how to hit at the park. I mean, Coastal, same thing. It's their park's the same way. They know where to go. Whereas places like the Teague, where you hit it out to center field, unless you hit it just right, it's a graveyard. So, I mean, that's those stadiums. But I mean, there's a reason why you're seeing Coastal swing the bat the way they are at home. And there's a reason why you see Texas State do the same thing at home as well, is that the ball just carries in those parks. And that's why you notice Texas State, they're a totally different team on the road. You saw it the other day. So that's kind of an advantage to us, the fact that Texas State comes to Lafayette this year, because they have to play at our park. They're not going to be able to play home run derby at theirs, which is very helpful to us as well, because we know how to hit in our park. They don't. So, yeah, those two teams, it's almost like fool's gold because of the fact that they take for granted their stadiums where the ball just carries out.
It reminds me of New Mexico State when we would play at New Mexico State, and like every fly ball was hit out the ballpark. And in fact, I think it was the year after we went to the College World Series, we didn't even qualify for the conference tournament because we got swept at New Mexico State over a blooper, fly ball home run. So
the wind is always blowing over there. I've been to Las Cruces 3 or 4 times. The wind never stops.
But that's what it feels like when you're talking about Coastal, when you're talking about Texas State, is that they know where to hit it in the ballpark, and they recruit guys who can hit it in that particular direction, wherever it is in that ballpark. So,
as long as we don't issue free passes, I feel pretty good against Texas State.
Agreed.
Arkansas State, who the Cajuns dominated last weekend, goes to Harrisonburg and loses the only game that they're going to play this weekend, 9-4. and that happened today. They had bad weather throughout on Saturday and Friday. So those games actually got canceled. I have no idea if they're going to make them up. But Arkansas State is now 0-4 in conference. James Madison wins the only game 9.
But I think they
2-4.
pushed it to extra innings, which Arkansas State fans were very excited about.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I do see that. They ended up playing 10, and then James Madison scored 5 on them in the only inning that they played.
Consolation prize for Arkansas State. They pushed it to extra. So there's some, improvement, I guess, in their eyes.
Man, ODU is just playing really good baseball. Their RPI is in the top 30 in the country. They can swing it. Tyser, their big bat, has come around, and now he's just bludgeoning the ball. I will give Marshall some credit. But by the way, ODU hosted Marshall in Norfolk. Marshall came out and played a whale of a game on Friday, got a great pitching performance, win the game 6-1, which is one of the bigger shockers in the Sun Belt Conference this year so far. So shout out to the Herd. That's a big win. But then Marshall, you can't compete with the bats that ODU has. I mean, they have a big boy offense, and we'll see that later in the season. But 22-5, ODU wins on Saturday. They also played a doubleheader and won the second game on Saturday afternoon, 12-2. So ODU can swing it. We've got some pretty good offenses in the Sun Belt. I think you're starting to see that to Nick's point about how everybody's scoring runs. I don't know, man. If this it's a top 5 RPI conference in America right now. I think that we can hold that. We had a decent non-conference schedule across the league, which is going to help us in RPI and everything. Our nitty-gritty sheets are really going to improve because of those things. But, I miss the days of the pitching because we win that way. So it's kind of like I'm learning how to swim and I'm just kind of floating out into the deep water and I got a little bit of water in my mouth. So I got to hurry up and get back to the side. I'm freaking out a little bit. It's so hard not to pitch and play defense. It's just,
what scares me the most is in the end, it's still a human element. And no matter what you do RPI wise or whatever, metric they want to go by, if you have this brand across your chest, you somehow get a pass from all that. So it is never going to be an automatic, we're going to be a 4 or 5 big lead this year. But the good news is people are starting to talk about it. And the more that national media starts paying attention to it and saying it out loud, the more the committee has to listen. So I would just say, as the Sun Belt continues to do what we do and continues to be better and continues to perform, it's so important for these national media people to say that. Otherwise, they can screw us and have no repercussions. Nobody's going to say anything if they put a 500 SEC team over a 35-win Sun Belt team. So we got to make sure we start getting the word out. That's the only thing that I am worried about, is because of the name across the chest, and ODU doesn't mean anything to a committee that is formed with Power 5 conference people.
Agree, but I will say this. Sun Belt has 5 teams inside the top 100 RPI right now, and we're into conference. So that bodes well because the majority of our conference mates have decent RPIs.
Correct.
You only have a couple of killers, and that's going to improve as we go.
And that's not been this way historically.
In a long time.
In a long time. I agree.
That's right.
And I think the good news is that like the 5 or 6 teams that are in talks of possible postseason play, not only does that add value to your conference because of the fact that even as a mid-major conference, that many teams are in the conversation, but also the Cajuns are right in the middle of that conversation. When you name one of those 5 or 6 teams, Louisiana is always going to be in that mix, especially now. So that helps tremendously because of the fact that now you have you have 2 teams that hosted regionals last year that are now in the conference, in Georgia Southern and Southern Miss. You have Coastal Carolina with their history. You've got Louisiana with theirs. And now you've got teams like ODU, and you also have a Texas State who was 1 game away from hosting a regional last season. That's a lot of teams in a conference that now have given the Sun Belt a lot of respect in the baseball world. I mean, the fact that you have these national pundits now, like guys that talk about college baseball on a regular basis, mentioning the Sun Belt with the big boys, that's huge for us, and that adds value. And that's how you're going to get the committees to honor and respect the teams when postseason play comes around. As like you said, Nick, as long as they keep talking about us, I understand, Josh, to your point, we usually went on pitching in the past, but with this Sun Belt conference now, with these teams that have come into the conference like Southern Miss and ODU, they all hit. They just have powerful bats. But at the same time, if that's what adds value to the conference, then by all means, I'm okay with adapting. But to our earlier conversation, I still hope our pitching continues to get better, because that'll give us a huge advantage within the Sun Belt. That'll make us a favorite. I mean,
you got to swing the bat to win now. And I'm just saying it's old habits die hard, but
it's not.
So far, so good.
Look,
so far, so good.
In this day and age, even in this day and age, if you look at the teams that go to Omaha and win national championships, they don't win just by swinging the bat. They win with pitching. I mean, look, again, Tennessee was a prime example last year. Everybody talked about how well they mashed, but what happened when they played Notre Dame? The bats got cold and they couldn't pitch.
When they played Notre Dame, they got cocky. That's why they lost.
Well, they ended up staying home.
Tennessee is cocky because Tennessee is cocky, and that's why they lost. But
at the same time,
that's a whole other rant. That's a whole other rant.
But you've seen that a few times over the last few years. Tony used to say all the time, you can't hit your way to Omaha. You got to pitch. You got to play defense. You got to get the timely hit. And even to this day, I still think that still stands. You're not going to be able to win national championships just by hitting the ball. You know, the days of gorilla ball, yes, they were great and all, but still, to get to Omaha and hit out of that park, you still got to pitch.
Tell that to Julian Brock.
I just want to get to that park, baby. After
Me
that,
too.
it's
I think we all do.
on. Yeah,
we're headed there. To complete the trip around the league, Georgia Southern, okay, who, by the way, a lot of high praise for Georgia Southern going into this year. They are now 12-12 and kind of looking for some answers. They went to the Pete and they lost the series. Southern Miss pulls out a nail biter, a really good baseball game on Friday, 4-3. Saturday, and Nickel mentioned this game soon. We'll talk about the shenanigans. 9-7. Georgia Southern ends up, I think Southern Miss at one point was down 4 or 5 runs. Georgia Southern blows it, loses the game. And then Georgia Southern did salvage getaway day. Again, another doubleheader because of weather across the country. They played 2 games on Saturday. Georgia Southern comes back, wins that 10-8. Again, another one of those close games. This was a really good series. But Saturday morning, we had a little bit of a problem between the two teams. Tell us about it, Nick.
Typical Southern Miss fashion. A guy hits a home run and showboats. And again, no reason to showboat. So I think they had runners on. They had a runner on second with 1 out. So they walked the guy to put runners on first and second, go for the double play. And for some reason, the guy who came up to bat felt disrespected, according to Southern Miss fans, which I still don't get them, but whatever. So the guy felt disrespected. Oh my God, they walked to get to me. The guy hits a bomb. So instead of just, trotting around the bases like a dude, he stops, he looks, he tosses his bat. Just sounds familiar? Sounds familiar, right? Don't say.
A pimp job from the
Southern Miss baseball team does this yet again. Tosses his bat, showboats around the bases, and then there was a little bit. So I don't know who was involved in the kind of trash talking. Probably the pitcher and one of the batters waiting on deck.
Well, Danny Lynch was the one who hit the homer.
Right. No. Wilkes. I think his name was Wilkes.
Oh, Slade Wilkes. Danny Lynch, I think, maybe got walked.
But he doesn't look like he walks. He hits the bait. He hits home plate and he goes and he does his celebration thing. But in the meantime, the catcher is between the pitcher and some guy talking trash. Well, the umpires decide to throw the catcher out the game. The catcher's the one the Georgia Southern catcher was the guy trying to break things up and get guys off each other. They toss him and they toss the guy who tossed the bat. So it ended up being one player from each team, but it seemed a little uneven because, again, the Georgia Southern guy was just trying to break things up, but he was kind of like collateral damage. But the point of the story is Southern Miss yet again shows their, excuse the French, shows their ass and does this showboating thing, which they were like, oh, well, I can't believe they talked trash against us. But we're starting to see a trend here over the same coaching staff over the last few years where guys get a little bit cocky, toss their bat, try to showboat. So that guy got what he deserved. The guy who did it against us didn't, because obviously we had a guy who couldn't hit the side of a barn with the baseball, and all of a sudden they think we're throwing at their guys. Whatever. Anyway, that's neither here or there. The guy got tossed. The Georgia Southern guy got tossed. They moved on, but again, just starting to be a little bit of a trend with that team. I don't know.
We need a villain in this league so badly.
That's him.
I'm glad we have one. They're like the they're
like the coastal football team of baseball.
Yes. They're like when Kevin Nash went to the Wolfpack. That's what they are. They are the heel, especially at the Pete. Ow! I know they're the heel. The Pete is like the Royal Rumble, and they're just. I love it. I cannot wait for that series. But anyway, Georgia Southern loses 2 out of 3 at the Pete against Southern Miss, who all of a sudden starting to play really good baseball, and Georgia Southern will go to ODU. Actually, no, they will entertain ODU, which should be a really good series. Georgia Southern pitching against that potent offense. I think that has some potential to be pretty solid.
Sunbelt's fun, man.
It is, man.
It's so fun now.
It really is.
Agreed.
And the last series we didn't talk about, Nick, you mentioned it. Georgia State takes 2 of 3. Excuse me, they lose 2 of 3 from App State, who, again, like you guys mentioned, who the hell knows who they are. They look great one day, they look terrible the next. A really competitive series in Atlanta. In Boone, which I think they might have a top 5 baseball park in America, scenery-wise. Unbelievable. App State takes the Friday night game 10-7. They come back Saturday morning, again, another doubleheader situation. Saturday morning, Georgia State wins 10-4 in a pretty non-competitive baseball game. App State comes back in the afternoon, wins 15-14 in a game that went back and forth like a heavyweight fight. I love to watch good baseball. I'm sick that I missed that game because I had it on the dial to watch, but too many things going on, especially, the soccer team going out and securing the top of the table, 17 goals for, 1 against. By the way, can y'all believe in this league, they only give you a 5-goal aggregate? It's ridiculous. We beat a team 11-0. They gave us 5 goals. I wrote an email. It was a strongly worded email.
How does that? Okay. Yeah.
At some point in the email, I started
Soccer's so
meandering.
weird to me, man. There are all these rules that don't make any sense.
It's all about
how can you end in a tie?
It's all about sportsmanship, man. You can't make the girls cry, and we didn't, I don't think. But you can't take away the girls' goals. We work hard for those goals. Come on. When we were coming up, you play till you get 3 outs. That's all I know.
I'm not going to say anything because I'll get in trouble.
Yeah, don't get in.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Josh.
All right, Jerry, because you joined late, any last parting shots before we tell the folks bye?
No, it's nice to get a week's break. I know the guys are probably, as Coach Deggs would always say, they want to be competitive and, we play in the parking lot, but sometimes you got to have a quick stretch, right? It's like taking a long road trip, got to stop, stretch the legs. And I think this is a good week to do that, coming off back-to-back 5-game weeks. 18-7, our best start in a long time. It's good to see that. And, the second half of the season is going to be a lot of fun to watch because the baseball competition on our schedule is only going to get better. So good series win at South Alabama. Good week, 4-1 in the last 2 weeks. It's good to see the Cajuns baseball team playing up to the standard that we've always expected. So looking forward to it and already getting excited for Friday night at the Teague against App.
Nick, last thought.
Yeah, we're up against 2.5 hours, so I don't want to drag this out any longer, but great results from baseball, softball, they dropped one at App State, but the St. Jemama's Sunbelt Conference in softball, we're going to have to step it up because the competition is just going to get harder and harder every single week. But happy for them to win that series. What is it? Since 10 years since we've lost the series?
75 consecutive Sun Belt Conference Series victories.
That's hard. You're spoiled. We're talking about being
impossible.
spoiled.
That's impossible.
I mean, that's ridiculous. So kudos to the girls as well, or the ladies, excuse me, as well. And looking forward to a quiet week and then picking it up against next week against App State baseball. So, yeah.
Shout out to the ladies who just keep grinding. Softball is, it's great. What can you say? Folks, thank you all for joining us on a Sunday night. We always appreciate you guys coming in and having fun with us. Your comments, your feedback, by the way, to help us get better is always welcome. That's how we judge ourselves, by what you guys want. This is what we do for you guys. I want to say a big shout out to track and field, who set some records this weekend. Our boy Jeremy Nelson finished first in the triple jump. Jay Booth had a great weekend. Miss Daigle set 2 school records and finished in first in multiple events. Want to give track and field some shine. They are out there really making some noise. Please rate, review, subscribe, share with your auntie, your nephew, your pawpaw, your mama, anybody who would be involved and interested in Raging Cajun sports, especially baseball. We will see you next Sunday to wrap up App State and the Cajuns. For Nick and Jerry, good night.